talkSPORT Sports Update, powered by the Nissan Van Range. Score a winning hat-trick of performance, payload and price. Search Nissan Vans or head to your local Nissan Van Centre.
With your headlines at 10 a.m, I'm Nick Ellaby. Good morning. Former Spurs midfielder Jamie O'Hara's laid into Daniel Levy over losing to Arsenal in the transfer market.
As soon as Maddison got injured, he should have gone bang on Eze. He knew Son was leaving at the end of the season. He knew he was going. Eze fits both them positions, number 10 and a left winger.
Spurs have been trumped. Arsenal now have an agreement with Palace to sign Eberechi Eze following that injury to Kai Havertz. Our reporter Ben Jacobs told us how Eze's versatility was also key for Arsenal.
Eventually, either Gabriel Martinelli might be sold or Leandro Trossard, even though he's been rewarded with a new deal. It's not added length, it's only added money.
Elsewhere, Bournemouth have completed the signing of Moroccan winger Amin Adli from Bayer Leverkusen. It's a 5-year contract. Brighton manager Fabio Hertzler admits Julio Enciso could leave. We understand Chelsea owners Blueco have an agreement to sign Enciso and loan him to Strasbourg. There's more on these stories at talksport.com. Now, it was noisy at Parkhead last night as Celtic fans booed their team off and chanted, "Sack the board."
It's normally the manager that goes when that starts to be sung. But no, listen, I think I can only really look at the players that we have here and the performance.
Brendan Rodgers says supporters can see the squad needs improving after a toothless 0-0 draw at home to Kazakh side Kairat in the Champions League playoff. And Europe's Ryder Cup captain Luke Donald says he's got a good headache this week. He's playing at the British Masters, but also needs to keep an eye on the field at the Belfry ahead of his 6 captain's picks to face the USA next month. Meanwhile, we've got live coverage of the season-ending FedEx Cup Tour Championship tonight from 6 p.m. over on talkSPORT 2.
talkSPORT News.
The number of asylum seekers being housed temporarily in UK hotels has risen by 8% on last year. And on GCSE Results Day, the Education Secretary says she wants to change the odds for disadvantaged children. More from the news team at past.
talkSPORT weather with QuickFit. With our wide range of services on offer, including tyres, MOTs, servicing and brakes, you can drive away happy every time.
Warm in the sunshine today, dry for most of us except in the north and east where there's light showers and a cool breeze affecting North Sea coasts.
Good morning, everybody. You're listening to Jim White and Simon Jordan, and we're live in talkSPORT. So Eze to Arsenal as the Gunners hijack Tottenham's deal. Has Eze pivoted in the better North London direction? Meantime, despite dominating Scottish football, is there a strange sense of frustration brewing at Celtic? Also today, are YouTubers the future for sports rights? Is there still a lack of PSR alternatives? How often do boardroom battles spill onto the terraces? Plus, from Midday, we talk boxing with fight pundit Spencer Oliver, and we speak exclusively to former heavyweight champion Daniel Dubois as he begins his rebuild post-Usyk. It's Jim White and it's Simon Jordan. We are live on talkSPORT.
100% engagement. Jim White and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT.
I'm liking this late entrance into the studio with you. It reminds me of Paul Ince when he played for Manchester United. Do you remember that? And he used to, the last one out, he used to join the team in the tunnel. And he was bare-chested. You're not bare-chested, at least.
No.
And he put his shirt on as he walks out.
But I've always been that way, haven't I? I mean, originally, I don't think you particularly warmed to it, but now you're relaxed about it, aren't you?
I'm very relaxed about it. Simon, good morning. Fight fans, you'll enjoy this. Later on this morning, you will hear from Daniel Dubois. I've just been in a recording suite here at talkSPORT and spoken to Daniel. And we talk all sorts of things, albeit his dad Stan had to get him out of bed. But that aside, Daniel was in pretty chipper mood, and we talk about everything, not least the talk of those gatherings at Daniel's place before he fought AJ and before he fought Usyk, the influence of his father on him, that and a whole lot more. I think you'll enjoy it, Simon. He knows he's got a bit to do, and he knows he's got to improve as a boxer in the ring after the lesson that he was given by Usyk last time around.
Well, the challenge, I think, is that certain people and certain very educated views believe that you can't introduce heart. And there's a question about that. And I'm not sure that I have the right to comment on it because I've never laced up gloves. But I think the perception is that Daniel could have got up in this fight, could have got up against Usyk in the second fight, took the knee in the fight against Joe Joyce. We were there at that fight. And I think that's probably a different narrative that should be spun for that. But you can't introduce an extra reflex in your mind, which is when you're really in trouble, the preparedness to try and do whatever it takes to overcome it. And I think a lot of people in the boxing fraternity think that Daniel lacks that gene.
Okay, he talks about parting company with his trainer Don Charles, that and a whole lot more. So Daniel Dubois within the boxing hour at 12, when Simon and myself will be joined by Spencer Oliver. Good morning, Everton fan Janet and husband Bernie. Big Everton fans, met Janet yesterday. Big fan of the show. Big fan of Simon's. Almost inevitably, everybody is. Although the man's bashful about that. But Janet, it was a joy meeting you, and you've got Brighton to look forward to at your new place this coming Sunday.
Opening Premier League game at the new stadium.
Yeah, I think Evertonians very much with a spring in their step. They've got David Moyes there, and they've got
a phenomenal new stadium, and a very close friend of mine, ex-girlfriend of mine, wanted her father to go. So a very close friend of mine had some tickets for that game, and I managed to get Meg's father some tickets to go to the opening game. Big Everton fan, so they're really looking forward to going to the opening Premier League game.
Excellent. Simon, I look at the headlines this morning, and we're going to go on to this now. I looked at social media last night with producer Luke, and war had broken out. Tottenham fans absolutely up in arms. It all centres on Eberechi Eze, but it looks like he's going to Arsenal in a £67 million deal and not Tottenham. The Times, Arsenal's late bid steals Eze from Spurs. The back of the Sun, and I think this will infuriate Spurs fans even more. Arsenal in £68 million hijack of Spurs deal. Easy pickings. So at the moment, Spurs feel on the wrong end of this and they are not happy. We're going to hear from Tottenham fans this morning. Get ready to call in because you know that Simon has a more than decent relationship with your chairman, Daniel Levy. So if you want to make some points and you want to make them strongly, get ready to do it. 03717 223344 81089. Simon, when you look at it, are Spurs fans right to feel annoyed? Arsenal have reached an agreement with Palace to sign Eze. The deal's worth in the region of 67 million quid. He's expected to play for Palace in the Conference League playoff tonight before he'll have a medical and join Arsenal tomorrow. Spurs had been securing the deal for the past few days. Yesterday reached full agreement with the club and the player. The completion was seemingly held up by Palace wanting Eze to feature in tonight's game, and they want a replacement first. But the view is that Spurs have had fully a fortnight with a free run at this, and they haven't nailed it down. Are Spurs fans right to be fuming this morning? From a football perspective, has Eze pivoted in the better North London direction? And as well as that, first Gibbs White and now Eze, have the Spurs boardroom metaphorically had their pants pulled down not once but twice in this window?
Well, in the Gibbs-White scenario, you had a situation where Marinakis dug in and started to complain about the manner in which information was being presented to other football clubs and how that manifested itself, and started to indicate that he would bring formal action against potentially whoever might have leaked information that would be bound into confidentiality around the release clause. Now, that can be, one or two people, can't it? It can be the agent that represents Gibbs White, which I think was Manasseh at the time, or it could have been the player himself. But they certainly made enough noise to create a situation which wasn't quite as easy to overcome as people might like to suggest it was. Then you've got a situation with Eze, and I'm not defending Daniel in any shape or form. I'm giving an alternate view rather than the one-dimensional binary outlook, which is Spurs have ballsed it up again. Is anybody under the illusion that the agent wouldn't have been trying to achieve the best outcome for the player, and Arsenal may well have already been in the background for some period of time? And perhaps Palace were looking at playing all ends against the middle to get the best price they could, which is fair play to them, and so they should, and have managed to achieve that. And the agent and the player have been given a series of opportunities. Now, if you want to make the argument that Tottenham had a march to steal, and they could have bent the player's wrist back, and they could have bent Palace's wrist back, and told them to when they were going to sign him, and so on and so forth, you can make that argument. And those that believe that everything that Daniel Levy does is wrong, you know, on one hand, we will constantly suggest that Daniel Levy is the deal maker extraordinaire. In another breath, we'll turn around and say that he isn't and doesn't do the deals. Now, people will say, well, hang on, that's because he's deal maker extraordinaire when he's selling. He's not the deal maker extraordinaire when he's buying. Now, I'm assuming that Spurs had their viewpoint on whether they could get Eze across the line. The layman that sits in his front room going, just pay what it costs. Just give them what they want, right? Which is, of course, what they would do in their lives when it comes to buying anything. They'll just walk into a car showroom, or they'll walk into estate agents, and they'll just pay the price and won't dare to try and negotiate anything. And that's perhaps the reasons why they're not multimillionaires, and other people are. But in the outcome world, they'll have their right to say it, because the outcome, which is what we all look at, doesn't matter what the story is, doesn't matter what the journey is, forget the compare and contrast.
No, but go on, in the outcome world, and you're about to say
Daniel hasn't delivered an outcome.
Well, that's it. And predictable responses from Spurs fans, certainly on social media. Typical Levy, delaying, incompetence, just pay the money and get it done.
Yeah, but that's just stupid, isn't it?
No, but wait a minute. They've got to have their say this morning. I mean, Simon, from someone, and with all due respect to you, from someone who has done deals in football, and you have, is navigating the transfer market as simplistic as some fans seem to think it is?
Well, of course it's not. Of course it's not.
So why didn't they get him?
Because it isn't as simple as some people would like to present it is. It isn't just a case of the player might not. The player will be aware. If people genuinely believe that Arsenal suddenly woke up yesterday morning and went, oh, him over there at Palace, didn't know about him. Let's have a think about him, shall we? No, they would have been in the background for some time, looking at the market, deciding what they wanted to do, perhaps already in touch with the player's agent, and giving the player's agent an opportunity to play all ends against the middle to achieve the best outcome for the player, letting Palace know that there's somebody else in the mix as well, so Palace can create competitive tension, which means they can play Spurs, try and get as much money as they can out of Spurs, go back to Arsenal, see if they can get as much money out of Arsenal as they possibly can. The player will eventually alight upon the best deal that suits him, and clearly the better club at this moment in time is Arsenal.
Yeah, but surely Arsenal have shown Tottenham a clean pair of heels here when they found out that Havertz is going to be out for however long he's going to be out. Mm-hmm. They got in there.
Yeah, but that's assuming that it was just that you're assuming that it was a done deal, that it was an absolute done deal, that everything had been agreed with Palace, everything had been agreed with the player. This is the characterisation that we are being led to believe is the case. And I doubt it's like that. But for the purpose of those that want to bark at the moon and say Daniel Levy is an incompetent, let's just say that's absolutely right. If everything was agreed and the player was as happy as a sandboy and everyone had agreed their money and the clubs had agreed their money and the transfer deals had been structured in such a way, then Tottenham have failed. If it's actually more convoluted than that it wasn't quite agreed, that there was in the background an opportunity for Eze to talk to Arsenal that the agent knew about and that Palace knew about, and that Palace were not interested in where the player went, they were interested in getting the maximum they could from the deal, and they had an opportunity to play Arsenal against Tottenham, that's probably more likely how it is. Now, if you want to blame Levy, if you want to say Levy should have just gone in and bid 75 million quid and blown them all out of the water. But that's not how the world works.
But they're not saying that. They're not saying that. Daniel knew what it would take, because as you rightly say, he's a very clever man. I've met him on numerous occasions. He knew what it would take to get Eze over the line. And the perception is...
But clearly he didn't.
They didn't do it. Circumstances changed late on.
But that's how...
And Arsenal, the door was open to Arsenal and they've gone in.
That's how we are playing it out. And that's how the Spurs fans that dislike what's happened in the situation will choose to play it out. But I would imagine the truth is something slightly different. There is a case. I mean, the Gibbs White situation, you wonder, given the Spurs apparently knew the release clause, yet apparently bid underneath the release clause, that doesn't make a lot of sense and seems to be what people would go, well, that's typical Tottenham. Why would you bid underneath the release clause when you know what the release clause is? You're not going to get the deal done. But you do need to have a conversation with people about testing their resolve and testing their attitude.
Before we hit the break, I want an honest answer from you. Every answer you do give me is honest. I would do concede that. How much does this Eze signing tilt the title balance? Arsenal get him, and
what? After Liverpool spent 200-300 million quid. It gives Arsenal less excuses not to achieve things. It brings up the expiration date of Mikel Arteta, because he's going to have nowhere to turn. If he gets Eze and he's got Zubamendi and he's got a centre forward, what will be the excuse if Arsenal end the season with very little more than a League Cup or something like that?
So it moves the needle a bit, but not hugely.
Well, but the other teams are strengthened. Man City will be better. Liverpool have gotten themselves into a position where they've actually, if it can be believed, they've improved themselves from last season. You know, obviously they've had tragedy in their circumstances. They've needed to make decisions, but they've bought players and improved their position. You know, if they do get Isak, which I hope they don't, I hope that Newcastle concentrate the minds of the player and the agent and bring him into line so that actually contracts mean something and clubs have a bit about them when it comes to player power in this day and age. But Liverpool are in a fabulous position. But what it does is it makes it an intoxicating mix of thinking about who's going to win this league and who's going to be challenging for it. Because Arsenal now have removed all the barriers to entry. Everything about Arsenal that could possibly be considered to be something that shouldn't be winning a title has just been removed.
Yeah, let's put it out there. First Gibbs White, now Eze. Have the Spurs boardroom metaphorically had their pants pulled down not once but twice in this window? Give us a call, Spurs fans. I know you want to. I'm looking at the calls that are coming in. Seismic number of you trying to get through to us. 03717 223344. And Arsenal fans, you get Eze. Does that tilt the balance more in your favour to going all the way and lifting this title? 03717 223344 81089. Good morning, everybody. Jim White and Simon Jordan live in talkSPORT with Selco. It's where the trade goes. As I mentioned, an exclusive interview with Daniel Dubois later on in the show when Simon and I are joined by Spencer Oliver and we will talk boxing. It's been a busy old week behind the scenes in the world of boxing, but a lot to get through this morning. And we have begun with this rather explosive story involving the two North London clubs, Arsenal and Tottenham. It looked as if Eberechi Eze was going to head to Tottenham. It was all but done. It was all but agreed. Spurs had been securing the deal for the last few days and yesterday reached full agreement with Palace and the player, 67 million quid. Now, a late-on pivot, and it looks like Eze is going to head to Arsenal, and that should be announced after Eze turns out for the last time tonight for Crystal Palace in the Europa Conference League. Yeah, the Conference League. Should be the other one, but it's not. Many of you getting in touch. There's one. Simon has spoken well on it, as he always does. But the messages are coming in thick and fast. Phil Chapman. Daniel Levy constantly says we're a big club. He says he wants to win the Champions League and the league title. He moved us from White Hart Lane to this new ground to enable us to compete with the big clubs. A big club yesterday seemingly swooped in and did a deal the same day on a player we've been haggling over for nearly 2 weeks. Maddison was injured weeks ago. A big club sees that injury and would act immediately. Certainly, Phil, you're right, because not that long ago, Daniel Levy, it was in May, I think, spoke about his ambitions for the club.
You know, I've got very broad shoulders. Failure's not an option. The desire to succeed. And because it's so difficult, I want to succeed even more. We've won a European trophy, but it's not enough. It's what we haven't done that is more important. We need to win the league. We want to win the Premier League. We want to win the Champions League. But, you know, we want to win.
Simon, at the time, you said straight after that, he now needs to back that up.
Yeah.
Well, backing that up would have been the arrival of Eberechi Eze, maybe. Would it not?
Yeah, I mean, if you take it as binary as that. I mean, this is the same Arsenal. When we're talking about this big football club, the same Arsenal didn't buy a centre-forward in the transfer window last January when they were challenging for the title last year. And the whole world criticised them for not having the foresight to be able to bid for a player. They tried to bid for Ollie Watkins under the market value, offered a derisory offer to Aston Villa, they got turned down, and everybody criticised Arsenal at the end of last January transfer window. So move the needle. It's all about the relative outcomes. And if you've got a narrative in your mind, if Daniel Levy doesn't do deals in the Spurs fans' mind and he's the reasons why they're not successful, every single time he doesn't do something, that'll be the point. And every time he does do something, that'll be forgotten. They forgot the fact that they bought Kudos. They've forgotten the fact that they tried to get Gibbs White and were stopped by Nottingham Forest and stopped by potential legal claims about the confidentiality around the NDA clause. And then the player was gotten into by the chairman and put in his place. So they forget these things. So whilst Daniel has to be judged by outcomes, he has to be judged in an outcome world.
I know he's your mate. They've slipped up here.
It's got nothing to do with being a mate.
Would you concede they've slipped up here? Well, and it's their North London rival who's going to steal a march from them. If,
for want of a better expression, he was in the Amazon shopping basket and all you had to do was push pay, right, and the deal was done and it was delivered the next morning, then yes, if that is right, if the characterisation that we have, which is everything was done, he was done, he was agreed, he was good to go, he'd had his medical, the transfer fee had been agreed, the wages had been agreed, and all he needed to do was rock up to Tottenham's training ground, then he's managed to slip from his grasp. If that's not the case, and there was a lot more moving parts to it, you can still lay criticism at Levy's door, which is you could have just blown it out of the water. You could have just made sure that there was no other opportunity, made the player so financially well reimbursed that he didn't want to look anywhere else, made the transfer deal for Crystal Palace so difficult for them to even want to talk to anybody else, and they still would have done. If Tottenham had gone to Palace and said, we'll pay 70 million quid, and that's a huge deal, and we're going to actually blow out of the water what you had as a release clause, Palace would have still taken it to another football club and see if they get some more money. That's the nature of business, because they got 70 million on the table, they'll try and get 75.
The thing is, if memory serves me right, this has happened to Tottenham before. Willian was there and was looking at the sign. It was virtually signing, having a medical. Mm-hmm. Who's in? Chelsea are in. Thanks for that. Gone.
Yeah. I don't doubt that I don't doubt there's plenty of football clubs you can look at and say deals have been done and then taken away. I mean, at the time, I suspect Chelsea were the dominant London team that were winning things left, right and centre. So you still have that to push back against. And yes, you can make the argument that Spurs should have done in 2001 what Roman Abramovich did for Chelsea in 2003. But they didn't. They had a different ownership model. And they had Sugarman before that decided to take over from Irvin Scholar and turn Tottenham into a football club that ran itself based upon economic prudency. And some clubs do, and some clubs don't.
So I'm looking at social media. Typical Levy delaying, incompetence. Is that fair? Is it right? Is it fair? John's a big Tottenham fan. John, good morning. Where do you stand on this?
Hi, good morning, lads. Hi, thanks for taking my call. I don't know if you remember me. I actually phoned up a few weeks ago about Levy anyway, and I wanted to expand the whole situation regarding him. I'm not trying to be clever now, but what happened yesterday did not surprise me in the least. I was actually expecting it, and when I heard Havertz had been injured, I thought, what's going to happen now? I just want to say quickly, Tottenham Hotspur are a club that won major trophies every decade from the 1950s to the 2000s. Only Manchester United can match that feat. And under a quarter of a century of Levy, we've now won 2 trophies in 25 years, the worst run of success for 40 years. Now, he's gone on and sacked 15 managers, starting off with George Graham, the first thing he ever did, the guy that we won the League Cup with the previous season, just before the FA Cup semi-final against Arsenal. And as I've said to you before, I remember the words of my late father who said to me, do not trust these people from edict. Anyway, the rest is history. Just back to this situation. As far as I can see, I know, all that Arsenal did was offer the same money that we did, but just on fairer payment terms, and they snapped up their player just hours after Havertz was injured. Okay? Son has gone. Maddison was injured months ago, and he's out for months. Weeks ago, he's out for months. Hulu is still injured. And after the Morgan Gibbs-Wright debacle, you would think that Levy would change stance and actually start acting as a proper football chairman. All he cares about now, I'm telling you now, is the building of the horrendous 32-storey hotel he's inflicted on Park Lane, ready for the 2028 European Championships. Now, I don't know what you feel about what I've been saying now, but I feel that as long as Daniel Levy and Enoch are at Tottenham Hotspur, we will be in the same boat all the time. And I wish Thomas Frank all the luck in the world. And what happened yesterday did not surprise me at all.
John, you're the first caller through. There will be more. We'll keep with this. But John, why not engage with Simon? Is everything John has said? Is he on the money?
If indeed everything John has said is steeped in fact rather than supposition, then there's a case to answer. Of course there is.
It sounds like he knows his stuff.
Well, it sounds like he has an opinion that's based upon a relatively coherent set of thinking, but he's not in the room. So he doesn't know his stuff. He knows the facts that he believes he's got from reading the media reports. Now, in the same way that I do. I'm not sitting in a room with Eberechi Eze and his agent. Neither are you. I'm not doing a deal with Steve Parish. Neither are you. I'm not first-hand with Daniel Levy on this transaction. Neither are you.
Come back in, John.
Well, sorry, let's talk about facts. The facts are this guy has been in charge for 25 years, leading Tottenham Hotspur through its most barren run of success since the 1940s. The facts are all Arsenal did was offer better payment terms.
How do you know? How do you know? No, I'm just out of curiosity, because I don't know, and I don't know, and I'm just playing devil's advocate for the purpose of conversation. How do you know?
Well,
you don't know is the answer to the question. You're surmising.
All right, let's surmise that then. But as far as I can see, if Daniel Levy we wanted to get Eze, right?
Yeah.
If they offered the money that Palace wanted and the payment terms that Palace wanted, surely and Arsenal were nowhere in sight at that time. Surely the guy would have signed
for us that's the case.
Days ago.
If indeed that's the case, if indeed you're right, and I'm not suggesting you're wrong or right, but if indeed you're right that the only reason Arsenal were in for Eberechi Eze is because of the injury to Havertz, albeit there was a link to Eberechi Eze to Arsenal earlier on in the transfer window. It had nothing to do with Havertz's injury. So to suggest now, because all the dominoes fall in line, you might be right, John. But I'm playing devil's advocate, because it isn't just as transfer deals are not just as binary as you walk in the room and go, I'll have him, wrap him, and I'm going to pay this and I'm going to do that. It doesn't work that way.
Okay, can I just go back to my
final point, John?
One final point. Sorry. When I said last time, one of the major rantings I said last time was, how the hell do you sack a manager, which was Mourinho, 6 days before a League Cup final? Do you remember what you replied to that, Simon? Do you remember what you said? You said that you heard that, just before that game, the players were queuing outside Daniel Levy's office, saying they don't want to play for Mourinho anymore. And you said, well, I'm not sure if that's true, but first of all, if that's true, doesn't that show what an absolute joke of a club we are? And secondly, what the hell is that about? You just tried to justify the sacking of a manager on the...
No, I didn't try to justify it. What I did was I caveated the explanation. And the same way that I watched the other fella, the Italian guy that decided to set the whole place on fire, Conte, to turn around and be derogatory and derisory about the football club, including the very best player at it, Harry Kane, because he wanted to get out the door. Football managers operate in very strange ways, and what you see at the front of the house is very different to what happens in the back rooms.
John, many thanks for kicking it off. John, the first caller. There are so many callers. We'll take some of them after this. It's 10:30.
Eze come, Eze go. Tottenham have had their top target pinched from under their noses, and former Spurs midfielder Jamie O'Hara has laid into Daniel Levy over losing to Arsenal in the transfer market.
As soon as Maddison got injured, he should have gone bang. I need Eze. He knew Son was leaving at the end of the season. He knew he was going. Eze fits both them positions, number 10 and a left winger.
Arsenal now have an agreement with Palace to sign Eze following that injury to Kai Havertz. And our reporter Ben Jacobs told us how Eze's versatility was key for Arsenal.
Eventually, either Gabriel Martinelli might be sold or Leandro Trossard, even though he's been rewarded with a new deal. It's not added length, it's only added money.
Elsewhere, it was noisy at Parkhead last night as fans booed Celtic off and chanted, "Sack the board."
It's normally the manager that goes when that starts to be sung. But no, listen, I think I can only really look at the players that we have here and the performance.
Brendan Rodgers says fans can see the squad needs improving after a toothless 0-0 draw at home to Kazakh side Kairat in the Champions League playoff. And in other transfer news, we understand Johan Visser is furious after Newcastle's latest £40 million bid was rejected by Brentford. We understand Chelsea's owners Blue Co have agreed to sign Brighton winger Julio Enciso and then loan him to Strasbourg. And Bournemouth have announced the signing of forward Amin Adli from Bayer Leverkusen. All your latest transfer news is at talkSPORT.com.
It is indeed. Good morning, everybody. Thursday, August the 21st. It's Jim White, Simon Jordan, live on talkSPORT. Courtesy of Selco, it's where the trade goes. We're streaming live on YouTube and your smart TV. You will see if you're watching. We're in our new studio here in the 17th floor of the news building. Getting used to it. It is rather good. We hope you agree. For all the information on how to watch the show, just head to talksport.com/watch. And of course, the story this morning is Arsenal's gain and Tottenham loss when it comes to Eberechi Eze. We'll talk the old firm as well. Rangers had a nightmare night the other night against Club Brugge in the Champions League qualifier. Celtic went into action last night against a Kazakh side I'd never heard of, with all due respect to them, Kairat, and they drew a blank. It was 0-0, and now they've got to travel 700 miles to Kairat next week to try and put the job right. Although Kairat, whoever they are, will have different ideas. Chance of sack the board. The Celtic hierarchy under a bit of pressure this morning because of perceived inactivity in the transfer market. Something that many Tottenham fans are citing today and pointing directly at Daniel Levy at Tottenham and saying it's your fault we didn't get Eze from Palace over the line. And now, just to compound matters, it looks like the same Eberechi Eze is going to head to their North London rivals, Arsenal. Certainly Eze himself has said in the past, as I understand it, Simon, that he's always wanted to put things right after being released by Arsenal as a 13-year-old. One day he might get the chance. Well, that chance has now come. And it looks like he's going to get his wish. Simon, when you look at it, after a brief respite following their first ever European trophy, has the goodwill from Spurs fans towards Levy now gone again?
Well, there's a large section of the Tottenham fan base that don't feel that Daniel has the wherewithal to get Tottenham where they think they're entitled to be. The fact is that Daniel may well have great wealth attached to Tottenham Hotspur if Tottenham Hotspur is sold. But economically, Daniel doesn't have great capital wealth to be able to propel Tottenham forward. Joe Lewis and the Joe Lewis Family Trust have no intention of funding Tottenham anymore. So the only alternative is that Daniel sells the football club to someone that's going to have more cash available to do what the Tottenham fans think they're entitled to have, which is a winning side. And there's nothing wrong with that expectation because they're a big football club. The stadium was built to be able to create better opportunities. There's no doubt that Tottenham have been active in the transfer market. They can make all the accusations that they want. Tottenham spent a lot of money last year. They spent a lot of money the year before. They are spending money in the transfer market. They'll turn around and question who they're buying and say these are typical Levy transactions because they're done in a certain way, which means we can get certain players, but they're not the quality that we need. So they spend the money. They don't like what they spend the money on. And then when they don't get deals done, they decide that's the only reason in the room. The only possible reason is Levy. Now, if indeed the accusations are founded and seeded in fact, which is the only reason Eberechi Eze didn't sign for Tottenham Hotspur is because Tottenham Hotspur prevaricated, pounced about and didn't want to do the deal that Palace would have done to get them across the line, then perhaps they have some of these fans have the right to say it. I'm not sure it's as black and white as that.
In May, though, Simon, Levy said, we want to win the Premier League. Will they do that?
Well, that assumes that everybody else...
In May, he said, we want to win the Champions League. Will they do that?
That assumes that everybody else in the room has no contribution. I mean, Liverpool have just spent £300 million because their revenue's at such a level, and that Fenway have got some liquidity now because of the structure of their deals that they've done around the media rights of their business. That's given them more liquidity to be able to fund Liverpool rather than sell players, which they've done previously, to fund it, albeit Liverpool's actual net spend this summer is about 50 million quid because they've sold a whole bunch of other players.
Yeah, but so if in their current
answer is no.
That's not achievable, why is he saying it?
No, he didn't say he was going to do it. He said they want to do it. The question is, do you actually want to win anything? Are you? No, he didn't say. There's no way that Daniel.
You can say, "Hi, everybody, we're going to win the Premier League this season." So they don't say that. We want to win it. So I'll guarantee you do. He's outlining his aims and his ambitions.
Yeah, but the next question that had to follow after that interview, which would have been the reasonable question: at what cost? And what are you prepared to do to win it? So I can't answer the question for you because the answer is, Daniel, are you prepared at all costs to win the Premier League and match your rivals pound for pound, wage bill for wage bill, to go toe-to-toe to win the Premier League? If the answer is, well, no, that's not our economic model, then you're not prepared to do what it takes to win the Premier League. And there is the answer to the question. But you didn't ask me that. You asked me does he want to win the Premier League? Of course he does. But on Daniel Levy's term, does he want to sell the house? Does he want to bet the house and spend inordinate amounts of money, increase the wage bill to way above the current situation, which is bank mandated to some extent, i.e. there are banking covenants in place that give them an opportunity to spend a certain amount of money if they go above certain things. Like years ago, when Arsenal moved from stadiums and the bank funded it, one of the conditions, the caveats, was that the bank required Arsene Wenger to continue to be manager. So there are covenants that go around behind the scenes in football clubs that people don't understand, but they only understand, and quite rightly so, because football's an emotional business. I don't care about all that. All I care about is whether my team wins or doesn't win.
Yeah, but Simon, look at the wave of optimism at the start of this season. He gets rid of Ange. He gets rid of Ange.
From who? What wave of optimism?
They win a European trophy. Oh my God, we've waited long enough for that. It's happened at last. Fabulous. They've gone for Thomas Frank. Right, no. Ambitious, and all of a sudden things are changing.
If you'd have done a straw poll,
and the Tottenham fans are thinking, aye, we might be onto something here. And then they hear Levy saying, we want to win the Premier League and the Champions League, and now they've lost out to Eze, to Arsenal.
But that would be wonderful if all that was true. But that's our characterisation.
What's not true about it?
If you'd have done a straw poll of all the Tottenham fans after the Europa League win, do you now think Daniel Levy is good for the football club? The same outcomes would have been, well, we got lucky. We won a league. We won the Europa League against a crap Man United. We finished XYZ's positions at the bottom of the table, and Daniel Levy's still the problem. Nothing would have changed. So all that changed was that people go, whew, we won a trophy. We've got to stop listening to that nonsense. The only people that started to suggest there was a feeling of euphoria, because everyone was debating in this studio, you included, as to whether he should fire Ange Postecoglou. So there was no feeling of euphoria about it. It was a feeling of what's going to go on next. Is he going to fire the manager that actually delivered them a trophy?
Yeah, but there was a sense of feeling that this could kickstart something. Of course, from the Tottenham fans.
Rubbish. Which Tottenham fans did you ask?
Many of them were saying,
rubbish.
Look, we like him, but he's got to go. Postecoglou. We've got to do something to change things. We've won a European trophy. Thomas Frank might be the man. Daniel at least has done something there. And now the same Daniel says, we want to win the Premier League and the Champions League.
I love the way
now they've lost out to Eze.
I love the way you speak to this homogenous Tottenham fan base, and they all come to the conclusion for the purpose of this conversation.
Let's speak. Maybe it's homogenous or not. Let's speak to Neville, who's a Tottenham fan, who's been waiting patiently. Morning, Nev. What do you want to say?
Good morning. Well, I'm fuming. Spurs fan, 60 years. I'll take relegation if it means Levy leaving the club. He is nothing better than a penny pincher. And Simon, there ain't a Spurs fan I speak to, and I speak to a lot, having run a supporters club for him, who want Levy at the club for the last 15 years, let alone now. He's got to go, and he's got to go now.
Can I ask you, Neville, did you see this coming? Did you think for a moment that Arsenal would steal a march on you and Nick Eze?
Anything where Daniel Levy's involved is possible. No, I thought Tottenham would get this over the line, but he's gone in with his penny pincher ways again. And I've got a question for you, Simon, because I respect you. I think you're great.
Thank you.
If you being a Palace fan, not an owner, not a chairman, being a Palace fan, if this kept happening to you year after year after year, would you not want the chairman of Crystal Palace to leave?
But it's a difficult question for me to answer because I've been an owner. So I see the other side of the equation that you don't see. If you look at behind Daniel Levy, before Daniel Levy was Alan Sugar. Alan Sugar ran Spurs exactly the same way that Daniel Levy runs it. Before Alan Sugar was Irving Scholar. And your club, with due respect to Irving being the intellectual capital behind some of the reasons why the Premier League was formed, Spurs were virtually bankrupt. So with that in mind, you've got to give some dispensation to some of the solidity that Levy has brought to the football club, whether you like his outcomes or not. Going to the question, those Palace fans will be sitting there now watching Steve Parish going, why aren't you spending money? Why are you allowing all the best players to be sold? You've bought no one. Dougie Friedman's left. Your chief executive has left. Eventually, your new manager will leave because he's been so brilliant he's not getting any resources. And the Palace fans will be up in arms. But behind that is also a context that Steve Parish has brought such success to Crystal Palace that I couldn't bring, that Ron Nodes couldn't bring, that I'd be balanced in my perspective and go, well, I want ambition. I want to be enthusiastic about what I'm watching. But I also know how bloody difficult it is.
But we haven't had success, Simon. We used to go to Wembley every other year. We won the double. We didn't.
But with respect again, the whole dynamic has changed. Chelsea weren't the force that they were. Man City weren't the force that they were. The way that football is now being financed and monetised is completely different than it was when Spurs were influential in the 50s, 60s, before you got relegated in 77. So you didn't have success all the time. You got dropped into the second division in the mid-70s. and you had a few cup successes in the 80s, and and you won the UEFA Cup when Tony Parks was there. But other than that, you've been a cup side.
Simon, are we a big club or not?
You're a big club. Absolutely, you're a big club.
When was the last mega-star signing we had?
Well, it depends what you think.
I'll tell you. It was
Gareth Bale.
Jurgen Klinsmann. No, we made Gareth Bale what he was.
No, you brought him back, didn't you?
No, he wasn't a big player.
No, you brought him back, didn't you?
Neville, this all changes, mate, if you beat Manchester City at the weekend, does it not?
We got a good record against Man City, and we'll get a draw up there Saturday. I'm convinced.
Neville, thanks for the call. Many of you trying to get through to us. We're going to take more. Neville, I do mean that. Thank you for the time you spent trying to get through. More calls after this. To get through this morning, from the humble YouTuber to European football rights holders. Where is this going? Is this the next turn of the wheel for sports rights? Very keen to get Simon's view on that. We've been hearing Simon's view on Eberechi Eze doing a bit of a swerve and veering off the road. Instead of going to Tottenham, it's looking like he's heading to Arsenal. It's more than looking like. He's going to end up there, isn't he? Because Arsenal want him. Arsenal are going to get him. They've reached an agreement with Palace to sign him. But it looked for so long that it was going to be Tottenham. And now, much to the disgust of the Tottenham fans, it's going to be Arsenal. And many Tottenham fans want to come through. So I tell you what we'll do. In the build-up to us getting to 11 o'clock, enough from me. You can engage with Simon. We'll try and get as many calls through as we can. Noel, a Tottenham fan, what's your view of what you're witnessing, Noel? Good morning.
All right. This is gone out of hand. Just come to try and like calm everything down. Like Tottenham fans and the anti Levy brigade. Right? I don't get it. Right? If Havertz didn't get injured, there would be no knee-jerk reaction. Right?
Right. So you think the reaction's been unfair? You think if Havertz hadn't been injured, we wouldn't be getting this hysteria?
Yeah, we wouldn't have. And you've got to look at it like this. I really don't think that that Mr. Frank, I don't think he really wanted Eze. Because if you look at it, Kudus, Gibbs White, Paulinho. Mr. Frank came in and those must have been his targets.
That's right. That's a good point.
Right? And Gibbs White didn't go over the line. If Eze was a target, Eze would have
been the primary target, is what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. No, we take your point. Lee's a Tottenham fan. Lee, do you think, like Noel thinks, this is all a bit over the top?
Hi, good morning. Thanks for taking my call first. I think it all comes down to this Europa League game for Palace tonight. Tottenham have agreed the fee. They've agreed personal terms, as we all know. But I think all along, Parish wanted Eze to play in this Europa League to help Palace get to the, progress tonight. And as long as the deal was not completed and this until this game's played, Eze is an Arsenal fan. He's an Arsenal trainee, whatever. He was always going to go to Arsenal, and obviously once the Havertz injury happened and the deal wasn't. I mean, Tottenham had basically done everything was agreed, but it was all hanging on this Europa League game tonight. You know, if Arsenal had come in last night and agreed everything, and it was all done and dusted.
So, Lee, you're telling me Levy and Spurs couldn't have done much more?
Well, put it this way, Jim, if Arsenal had come in like they have and Palace had pulled Eze from tonight's game, then I can understand the anger. But as it stands, he's still playing for Palace tonight, and Eze is always going to choose Arsenal over Tottenham being an Arsenal thing. So,
okay, Lee, we get your point, and thanks for the time. We'll finish with Mark, who's been waiting patiently. Mark, finish it off for me. You're an Arsenal fan. You're going to get him. Good morning, Mark. Maybe Mark's not willing to speak at this stage. Matt is. He's a Tottenham fan. Matt, finish this off for me. Good morning.
Yeah, hello, guys. Great show you have there, Simon. I've had a bit of a run-in with you last time when Harry Kane was leaving.
Did you, mate?
And you called me a buffoon, and I don't know what I'm talking about when I said to you
sounds
that
a bit
I'd rather
harsh.
be in
Doesn't sound
Leicester's
like me.
position. Yeah, being Leicester's position where you're going down, but at least you know you've won the Premier League title. I could go up and down like a yo-yo 100 times, but I know that I've lived to see it. Now, right now, you keep talking about the fine lines of what a chairman does, and you don't know, and we're just hypothetically saying this and that. That's what you're coming out with. But when you've got a chairman and the guy shops clearly at Primark, you know that. You know that. You don't want to admit it, but you know that. The guy's got a Rolls Royce in Harry Kane. He bleeds dry at every football club, which I would do as well if I'm gonna sell my best player, which is $250,000 a week, by the way. And then he turns around and brings in second-rate footballers. Vicario brings in Udogie, brings in Van der Ven, brings in Romero, brings in Porro, Bissouma, Richarlison.
You think Romero's a second-rate footballer?
No. Don't talk to me today. When he came in, he was a second-rate footballer. Now, this is what he does. He can get the second-rate footballers in at $60,000 and $50,000 a week. But then he goes and does, which I want you to answer this one now, because I don't even think you can answer this.
Tell me.
How can you give 175 not one season, but 2 seasons, Timo Werner? How can you justify that?
I agree with that. No, I can't.
No, of course you agree with that.
No, I agree with that.
I know what I'm talking about. Simon, I know what I'm talking about.
I agree with you.
You cannot defend this parasite, because that's what he is. You can't defend him.
That's strong, Matt. That is too strong.
No,
Matt, finish on Ezzy. Finish on Ezzy for me.
Listen, Ezzy's another one. David Raya was going to come to Spurs, but your penny pinching mate lost out and he went to Arsenal. That's the small, fine lines of when you're a chairman, and that's my point I'm trying to make to you.
You have some validity in your thinking.
Listen,
you have some validity in your thinking. No one's disputing it.
Simon, he shops at Primark. He's got a Harrods Stadium and he shops at Primark with his Primark figures.
There is an element of what you're saying, before you spontaneously combust, there is an element of what you're saying which is absolutely right, which is if you want to be able to compete and beat the teams at the top of the league, you can't really do that on a 45% turnover of wages to turnover of ratio. The challenge is...
How can you justify Timo Werner?
There's no need for me to justify it because I concur entirely with your view. I think he's a speedboat without a brain. So I agree with you entirely. I don't look at Timo Werner. He wasn't good enough for Chelsea. He stunk the place out. He's gone back to Germany. He hasn't done particularly well there. So I agree with you.
James Maddison's another one.
Well, you've got different views on that. I'll sit in a studio. I'll sit in a studio with England midfield players like Danny Murphy and top players like Souness that will say Maddison's a good player.
Mate,
so I'm not going to go against their view because they've played.
Simon, the guy has got nothing, and he's overrated, this guy. He's got nothing. He played under Ange 60 minutes here and there.
But Matt, you obviously didn't see the exchange between myself and James where I turned around and said, you'll never win anything with James Maddison in your side. And James Maddison reminded me by sending me a picture of the FA Cup final that he didn't play him.
Of course, but Simon Jordan was on the other end, giving Solanke, Tottenham got ambition, James Maddison, Tottenham
No, what I said was Tottenham spent £75 million on Solanke, and one of the reasons why they signed Solanke and they didn't sign Ivan Toney was because the statistics that were given to them by their data department suggested that Toney was in the decline and Solanke was the right kind of player for Ange Postecoglou's style of play.
Simon, I don't agree. I don't agree with Ivan Toney as well.
That's fine. You're entitled to your opinion.
But you've got to remember, you had a Rolls Royce at $250 a week. You got 100 million, and you went to Primark and you went and got Dominic Solanke. You cannot justify telling me that this football team is going to excel and stay with the standards.
There's time left in the window, Matt, isn't there?
But Matt, in fairness to your circumstances, and I understand your point, there's only so many Harry Kanes around the world. So, with due respect, who would Tottenham have bought that as a centre forward? Just give me a name that you think would have been a fantastic addition. Ultimately, Liverpool bought Darwin Núñez for 80 million quid. Couldn't hit a cow's backside with a banjo. So what are you talking about in terms of what Spurs should have done? Well, who should they have bought?
Okay, I believe that Trossard was going to come to Spurs and he went to Arsenal.
That's not a centre forward. Go back to the centre forward argument. Just compare the Rolls Royce argument that you wanted to use a minute ago.
Getting my team. I know you're getting my team tomorrow, and that's my point.
No, you just use a centre-forward argument. Just stick to the centre-forward. Don't go about whataboutry to make another point. You use Harry Kane as your Rolls-Royce example, and you said he shops in Primark by getting Solanke. Who should he have got as a centre-forward?
Listen, I know there's limited amount of forwards.
Well, then what are you saying then?
I get that, but the realities are...
You can't bring Trossard into the argument, can you?
Listen.
Maybe they could have nicked Gyökeres from Arsenal.
Simon, Arsenal sat and waited, and you moaned about how Arsenal haven't gone out and got a centre forward when they need it. Do you know why?
Because
your fault, Arsenal's mentality. This is Arsenal's mentality. Listen to this. This is Arsenal's mentality. Arteta thinks about Arsenal Football Club and goes, do you know what? We're not just going to go and get any player. Like you just made that there's no footballers out there at that moment. But you know what?
Yeah, but they just threw a bunch of cash around at the end of it. They made a ridiculous offer for Ollie Watkins at the end of January, knowing full well that they had a problem with strikers. So when you want to move the dial, you can move it back to everyone falls short of people's expectations.
I think Daniel Levy thinks a lot about Tottenham, Matt, to be quite honest, but we appreciate the time and we appreciate the call. When Ezzy signs, then we'll bring you the news first. When he signs for, Arsenal.
talkSPORT Sports Update powered by the Nissan Van Range. Supporting van owners to get the job done. Search Nissan Vans or head to your local Nissan Van Centre.
With your headlines at 11 a.m, I'm Nick Ellaby. Good morning. As Arsenal look to have nabbed Eberechi from under Spurs' noses, Simon Jordan says Arsenal are running out of reasons for not getting over the line in the title race.
It brings up the expiration date of Mikel Arteta, because he's going to have nowhere to turn. If he gets Eze and he's got Zubamendi and he's got a centre forward, what will be the excuse if Arsenal end the season with very little more than a League Cup?
Whatever happened behind the scenes, Glenn Hoddle's told us losing out on Eze is a disaster for Spurs.
Because it's exactly what we need. I think with Maddison getting injured, that creativity that Eze certainly brings is a natural footballer.
And how have the rest of the Spurs faithful taken the news?
Mate, it's just ridiculous. It's the same old Tottenham. They've come in with more money. So what's Daniel supposed to do?
Stop laughing, mate. I'm fuming. Absolutely fuming. Woke up 4 a.m. Here we go. Oh, I'll go back to bed.
We understand Arsenal have agreed a Crystal Palace club record £60 million deal to sign Eze. Elsewhere, Bournemouth have announced the signing of forward Amin Adli from Bayer Leverkusen. That's a 5-year deal. Southampton are in talks with Middlesbrough over attacking midfielder Finn Azaz. He's keen. Borough value Azaz at £10 million. And Fabian Hertzler admits Julio Enciso will probably leave Brighton. We understand Chelsea owners Blueco have agreed to sign the winger and loan him to Strasbourg. All the latest transfer news at talksport.com. And Scotty Scheffler says people comparing him with Tiger Woods are just being silly. Scheffler's defending the FedEx Cup at the season-ending Tour Championship. We've got live coverage from Atlanta over on talkSPORT 2 from 6 p.m.
talkSPORT News.
The number of asylum seekers being housed in hotels has gone up by 8% in Labour's first year in government. And a woman jailed for stirring up racial hatred on the day of the Southport murders is being released today. More from the news team at past.
talkSPORT weather with QuickFit. Come rain or shine, we've got your car's inbuilt safety tech covered with expertly trained technicians across the country, so you can drive away happy every time.
Warm in the sunshine, dry for most of us today, except in the northeast, where it's light showers and a cool breeze affecting North Sea coasts.
Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday morning. Got off to a bit of a banger of a start. It's Jim White and it's Simon Jordan. We're live on talkSPORT. 2 will become 3 from 12 noon onwards. Spencer Oliver will join us in studio. We shall talk boxing, which proves to be a very popular hour of the week, and we're delighted about that. And we can tell you that you'll be hearing exclusively from Daniel Dubois in that hour. What is next for him? What's been going on behind the scenes? Why he's gone for a new trainer and has moved from Don Charles to another individual, all that and a whole lot more. In the meantime, we are looking at a variety of subjects which we will encapsulate in this feature that we are running these days. Keep Britain tidy. We'll look at a topic or two, and if we're happy enough that the topic should survive, then the topic survives. We give it the thumbs up. If it doesn't, we'll throw it in the bin. It's time for this.
Get in the bin! On talkSPORT with Keep Britain Tidy. Cigarette butts are rubbish. Bin your butts.
Do we think there's legs in this, Simon, or do we bin it as an item for discussion? Are Crystal Palace right to be risk-averse in their playing of current transfer targets, Eze and Guehi, tonight in the Europa Conference League? Are they gambling to an extent with many millions of pounds worth of talent on the field of play, knowing that if something goes wrong there and an injury might happen, then that player may end up going in a different direction. Oliver Glasner's been talking about this. He was asked about the professionalism of his players, like Eze, like Gehi, playing during a time of transfer speculation surrounding them.
When one of the players will leave, which I don't know at the moment, then they want to leave as the guys who always, or the players who always give 100% for Crystal Palace. This is what they did since they signed, I don't know, many years ago. And this is what we expect from them until the end. We all have to be pleased that the player gives 100% when he has a guilty contract. So if there's something going wrong, so it should be the opposite. If a player signs a contract, so he should stick to the contract. So I think it's not that we have to say thank you every day that the player gives 100%. This is what we can expect. So also to get a few pounds a week. So I think it's also the right of a club. And the duty of a player to give 100% as long as he's under contract.
You see, I like what Glasner's saying there, Simon, because juxtaposed to the likes of Isak and Visa, is it not refreshing to see and hear of two players handling potential exits in the right way? I mean, is Glasner right? Should it be the bare minimum? You bet I'll play. You bet I'll play tonight amid this speculation.
Well, then can people stop defending players or suggesting that players are compromised when it comes to situations where they might be leaving a football club and their mind isn't right? Can we stop peddling that narrative through sections of the media or through player apologists or through football agents or through whatever orthodoxy people are allowed to perpetuate that load of old cobblers? That players are challenged by some wonderful move that's about to make them a multimillionaire or a bigger multimillionaire than they already were, and they're so conflicted by it they can't play for their current football club. Can we pack in that narrative?
Right.
Because all Oliver Glasner has said there is something that's basic commercial and decent common sense, which is whilst you're playing for this football club, you have an obligation, as anybody does, to give your best version of yourself. And this idea that we turn, he was a great servant of the club. He's not. No one was a servant of anyone. No, people do things because they want to do things. They're not a servant to the world of football or a servant to the world of boxing. They do it because they're getting paid very well for doing it in the first place. So when we get rid of this load of old cobblers that only seems to exhibit itself in sport and no other walk of life, no one says, he was a great servant to talkSPORT when you shuffle off this mortal coil, will they? They'll turn around and say, well, on to the next person, please, thanks very much. The reality of it is that players have been given too much latitude for too long, too much licence to be indulged, and it's sections of the media that perpetuate this. And if they stop doing it, then we wouldn't be applauding the basic fundamentals of someone doing what they should be doing in the first place, and everyone giving a round of applause for someone turning up.
Glasner's your kind of guy, isn't he?
I think he's a great manager. I think he's he came with a degree of reputation of being perhaps slightly difficult to deal with. My understanding of is the polar opposite of that, in terms of he's very clear. His evidence of what he does is on the football field, because Palace have seen levels of success as a result of him. The challenge for Crystal Palace is now they have an economic model that has served them well, but has now brought them to the crossroads of, do they want to kick on? And if they want to kick on, then they've got to do something different to what they're doing before, which means they've got to change their economic thinking. And they don't like that, because the reality of it is the upside might be outweighed by the potential downside. But the upside includes perhaps keeping this manager. The downside perhaps results in losing the manager and losing the opportunity that people will naturally think is there for Crystal Palace. They will naturally assume that because they've won the FA Cup and the Charity Shield, well, you know what, a few twists of the wheel and Palace could be a top four side. Yeah. That's not true. So it's a sustained investment that Palace don't have the resources to be able to do, and they might be able to put themselves in hock to do it, and then act in haste and get to repent at leisure.
So we at a time when a player is the subject of transfer speculation, we often hear of, my mind's not on it and I can't play.
That should be indulged.
We'll bin that. It should
not be indulged. It should not be allowed.
Yeah.
But to suggest that, if Palace are risk averse, then they won't be playing these players. And let's be honest about it. If you're selling £100 million worth of players, you wouldn't play them to some extent, because it'd be madness to do so. You wouldn't. If you were selling your house to someone that's come round to your house and they're about to bid a load of money for it, you wouldn't have a rave in the house the day before, would you?
No. Well, no, we've learned from experience on that front. What about Celtic? Despite dominating Scottish football, is there a strange sense of frustration brewing at Celtic at the moment? Celtic, as we know, have been dominating the Scottish scene. Rangers have been making up the numbers like everybody else. And they still are, yeah. We'll see if they go to another domestic title this season.
I thought that's all you jocks wanted to do up there, was make sure that either Celtic or Rangers dominate the league, and as long as Celtic are beating Rangers, that's what qualifies as being successful, isn't it?
No, a decent run.
Now you move the needle, it's got to be in Europe now.
Not at all. A decent run in Europe at some stage would be pretty good, wouldn't it?
I mean, when you haven't got big enough resources.
Well, Rangers bucked that trend when they got to the final of the Europa League
and lost
on penalties to Eintracht Frankfurt. Managed that night by one Oliver Glasner.
Second tier of the European competition. Celtic are playing in the main tier.
But having said that, Celtic in Champions League qualification last night, they're up against Kazakhstan side Kairat. Now, of course, with fresh in the mind what happened to Rangers the night before across the city at Ibrox, 3 down after 20 minutes to Club Brugge, it was thought Celtic will show how it's done. They're up against Kairat. Who the heck's Kairat from Kazakhstan? It finished 0-0. There were cries of sack the board, and Brendan Rodgers addressed that post-match.
What I do know is over many years, sack the board normally means sack the manager. It's normally the manager that goes when that starts to be sung. But no, listen, I think I can only really look at the players that we have here and the performance. We've known for a long time what we've needed as a squad, so I don't want to go into that. I can only concentrate on what we have here.
How about
a bit of loyalty?
What I can tell you is during that bit of audio from Brendan Rodgers, you started speaking through gritted teeth and clenched your fists. How
about a bit of loyalty for the guys that employ you? How about pushing back against the narrative that he's working for good people that are giving him lots of support, gave him a second chance, an opportunity?
But he's been calling for more reinforcements in the last couple of weeks.
Sure, and what he calls for and what he gets might be two different things. It's called working in conjunction with people rather than working against them. You're an employee. You're an employee of people that took you back when it suited you, when you left when it suited you, and really and truly what you should be doing in front of the media, rather than playing all ends against the middle to make sure you're all right, Jack, is to say, look, Celtic are an ambitious football club. I work for a brilliant board, and I'm enjoying my time here.
But this brilliant board hasn't forked out to replace Kyogo, hasn't forked out to replace Nicholas Kuhn.
And maybe they think the boy up top, Idar, can do a better job. He did a decent job for them in the Champions League last year. The fact he didn't lift the leg last night, got hooked off by Brendan Rodgers at half-time, might explain some of the outcomes they didn't get in the game.
So Brendan should just sit there and say, listen, behind the scenes, everything's great.
No, do you know what?
I work for great people.
Do you know what he should do? He should get on with his job or leave. Because he's working, unless, of course, the people that he's working for are dreadfully mendacious. I've told him a pack of porkies, and they've said they're going to give him lots of money, and that ultimately they haven't done that. If they haven't done that, and he's agreed a framework, and things aren't working the way you want them to, which often happens, and as an owner, you sit back and watch the manager going, why the hell's he doing that? Oh, because he did that for that particular reason. It didn't work out that way. Oh, I'll get on with it then, because that's just his quirk. In the other
you
side,
ask a Celtic fan, they'll tell you this morning, Celtic have many millions in the bank. Good for them. But they spent, 2 million in this window thus far?
Yes, I've seen the situation. They've got 65 million pounds in the bank. Absolutely, I've seen it. So they're, one would assume that those that are in charge of Celtic.
Well, that's why they're singing sack the board.
Well, what have we?
And they don't really want the board sacked, but they're saying, board, buck up your ideas. Is there anything wrong in that?
What a ridiculous way to operate. You've got a team that's dominating Scottish football that did okay in the Champions League last year, did better than it's done before, and the first time you don't like something, sack the board. I mean, really. I mean, I get it. I think the emotion is wonderful. I think there's nothing logical about football, and sometimes I try and sit here and try and be the sort of bastion of common sense when football isn't based upon it. But pack it in. You've had a bad result in an individual game. You're probably going to bash this lot up in the away leg and move on. Sack the ball is the best you can come out with. Sack the ball.
But those same Celtic fans who were singing that last night, if for whatever reason Celtic slip up in Kazakhstan and go out, will they have not had a point?
Sack the balls. Sack the ball.
Of course. Your Champions League money.
Absolutely. Sack the ball then. Yeah, of course. The moment you don't like something, set it all on fire. Absolutely.
It's about ambition and outcome, though, Simon. But they want to see both the Celtic support.
Accepted. Understood.
You talk about loyalty. They'll follow them everywhere.
And has Celtic been brave and bold and invested previously? Did they take a brave decision to bring Brendan Rodgers back after Brendan Rodgers decided to leave when it suited Brendan Rodgers in the middle of a season? And did they defy the orthodoxy of the Celtic fan base that probably didn't like that decision because Brendan Rodgers was so dreadfully disloyal as to want to advance his own career?
So you're saying to me this morning, not so much the Celtic fans singing what they sang, it's Brendan who should rein it in?
No, I think that there should be a context to everything as to the reasons why Celtic wouldn't spend money. Is it because Dermot is desperately trousering all this money? Right? Is that what he's doing? Or is there good reasons behind it? Is there a reason? Is it because there may be the targets that they've gone for or the players that they think they've got are good enough to be able to achieve the outcomes that they want? Because I'm pretty damn sure that they'd like to qualify for the Champions League.
Of course they would. But there's one Celtic fan. I'm a lifelong Celtic fan. We're talking regression, not progression.
Okay. What, because of one game? You're top of the Scottish Premier League. You might not be playing the greatest brand of football, okay? You're in the Champions League. Next week, if you get knocked out, have your say.
Okay.
When you don't get knocked out, what's it going to be then?
We'll take the Celtic fans' song last night about sacking the board, and for the time being, we'll put it in the bin. Because after all, we want to keep Britain tidy.
Get in the bin! On talkSPORT with Keep Britain Tidy. Cigarette butts are rubbish. Bin your butts.
It's Jim White and Simon Jordan. We're live on talkSPORT. We have been talking about Eberechi Eze. No to Tottenham, but it's a yes to Arsenal, and that's infuriated many Tottenham fans. Let's get more on this. Alex Crook having a well-deserved day off, but in no way is this man anyone's replacement. talkSPORT reporter Ben Jacobs joins us live. Ben, can you talk us through what you know chronologically about what has happened here regarding Eze ending up at Arsenal, as he seems certain to do?
Yeah, good morning. So Arsenal were actually first to the table. They made an approach in late June. They spoke to the player. They had buy-in, but then they didn't move. Ethan Nwaneri signed a new deal, and Arsenal put the brakes on, thinking that maybe Nwaneri would get some minutes in the number 10 role, and if they were going to add a player, it would be a left winger. And yes, Eze can play wide, but they saw him as a number 10. Then Spurs were the one really pushing, and in a one-horse race for much of last week, but they didn't get the deal done before the opening Premier League games of the season. Eze played, therefore, against Chelsea in that 0-0 draw. And that sort of dilly-dallying or tough negotiating has ended up, in hindsight, coming back to bite Tottenham, because then as we moved into this week, Spurs reached an agreement in principle. They had a fee very similar to that Arsenal are paying, 60 million and add-ons. Kai Havertz picked up a knee injury, and Arsenal said, we've done all of the legwork, let's move. Eze was therefore faced with a straight choice between Arsenal and Spurs, and in that scenario, with both having a club-to-club agreement, Eze was always going to pick Arsenal. So it looks like Daniel Levy was too meticulous, but in fairness, Crystal Palace delayed as well, because they didn't want to finalise the deal with any club, allowing the possibility that Eze can play tonight in the UEFA Conference League before now making his move to Arsenal.
See, Ben has splendidly, in my view, explained the order of events, Simon, which has brought us to this stage. There was still a window during which time Spurs could have got this done.
But if Crystal Palace, if you're following what Ben suggests is the order of events, if Crystal Palace weren't going to allow him to go prior to playing in the UEFA Conference League playoffs, then the deal wasn't done, was it? So whatever dilly and dallying was being done, unless there was going to be a pre-agreement which said directly after the game against the UEFA Conference League they was going to sign for Spurs, then I don't understand what we're talking about.
Well, was the dillying and dallying actually done by Palace then, Ben?
Well, to an extent, but only I think when we get into this part of the week. So the window of opportunity for me, according to sources, was before the opening Premier League game. Because remember, 24 hours before the Premier League season started, another aspect here is Eberechi Eze's release clause of 60 million plus 8 million in add-ons expired. Now, Tottenham, thinking that they were in a one-horse race at that point, decided we're not going to trigger the clause because the terms of that clause are less preferable. And as a result, they tried to do a deal slightly under it. But now if you look at the two agreements in principle, it's £60 million and 7.5 million in add-ons instead of a 68 million package. Now, it may be, in fairness to Daniel Levy, the terms are completely different. They're far more preferable to Spurs and Arsenal compared to that release clause. But I think from Tottenham's point of view, if they knew that Arsenal were going to come into the race and they didn't last week, maybe they'd have triggered the clause, or maybe they'd have pushed to get their agreement done on the Friday. Then Eze wouldn't have in likelihood have played against Chelsea, and he might be holding up a Tottenham shirt. I think the delay from Palace in relation to the UEFA Conference League only came after that window of opportunity. And on the Friday, Tottenham were in a one-horse race, but by the weekend, Arsenal had started to make their move. And then naturally, Steve Parish played a blinder. He was able to have two clubs speaking to him, and he's basically got the full release clause paid, even though it expired on the Friday.
Got it, Ben. Thank you for that. So it's no longer Eze for Spurs. Who are they looking at?
Well, I think Tottenham want two signings, a left winger and still a number 10. And it would be interesting now to see what direction they move in. Spurs' feeling is that they might be able to put big money on the table and still get Savinho from Manchester City. But my understanding is it's being blocked at board level at the moment. So City would have to U-turn. And then, of course, if they sanction that sale, maybe they're going to make a late window move for Rodrigo. But there's a fair few moving parts there. I think Tottenham like the idea of Xavi Simons, but he's got his heart set on Chelsea. That would be a number 10 option and a versatile player as well. And we still might see Tottenham enter the race for a right-sided and central player such as Tyler Dibbling. Everton are the side that are pushing and trying to finalise that deal. Not the perfect kind of profile if we're talking about number 10s and players that could even end up pushing further forwards, but a player Tottenham have liked for quite some time. So I think 2 attacking reinforcements are going to come in for Spurs minimum between now and the end of the window. But they are, of course, running out of time, and certain targets have already now gone elsewhere.
And are we getting any closer to Wissa getting his wish of moving out of Brentford and going to the northeast to Newcastle?
Not at the moment. And again, Tottenham have been interested in Wissa in the past too. And you've got the Thomas Frank link. I think Brentford's best chance of getting their £50 or £60 million asking price will be with 2 suitors. Wissa wants Newcastle, 40 million bid rejected yesterday, as we revealed on talkSPORT. And now we have to see what's next, because Keith Andrews wants to keep the player. Brentford are doubling down and saying Dango Ouattara is a replacement for Brian and Mbeumo, not Yohan Wissa. So unless another number 9 comes into Brentford, Wissa might stay. And now the player may have to determine what's his next move. Is there going to be a public statement? Is there going to be a continued doubling down that he will not reintegrate? I don't think we're in Alexander Isak territory where if the window shuts, Wissa would say, I'm never playing for Brentford again. And naturally, if Brentford know that, they hold all the cards because they just have to weather the storm for the next 10 days. And then Wissa will still be a Brentford player. Newcastle sources also insist that 40 million for a player that's 28 with 1 year left and a club option on his contract, that's about as high as they're prepared to go. So at the moment, we don't have clarity as to whether Wissa will be able to go to Newcastle, but it's clear that he desperately wants that move.
And Ben, what do you know? Chelsea maybe doing a deal with Brighton. Someone once said to me, it sounds like deja vu all over again. What do we know?
Yeah, this is fascinating because it's Chelsea, it's Strasbourg, it's Julio Enciso. And what we understand is he's going to Strasbourg first and then to Chelsea, assuming it's signed, and it's not at the moment, 20 million euros package. And the reason why I find this fascinating is because if he's a Chelsea signing, he can't be loaned to Strasbourg at the moment because they've filled their quota. You've got Mike Penders, Kendry Páez and Mamadou Sarr. So logically, Strasbourg have to buy 1 year contract and then he's sold to Chelsea. But the way sources are describing it to me, this is a blue co-acquisition, almost implying that 100% of the player rights are owned by the parent company, and then he's almost been given 2 simultaneous contracts, 1 year at Strasbourg and then 5 years and a 1 year option at Chelsea. So I'm still waiting for clarity because there was some suggestion it's a Chelsea signing and a loan to Strasbourg, but they'd have to recall a player or Strasbourg would have to buy one of the 3 that I mentioned because you can only have 3 club-to-club loans within a parent company. So maybe this is Chelsea getting creative, but I'm led to believe this is a blue co-signing rather than specifically Strasbourg or Chelsea.
Ben, very interesting. Thank you very much indeed. Ben Jacobs with us. It wouldn't be totally unlike Messrs Bowley and Egbali to get creative, as Ben rightly said.
Well, they are very creative, aren't they? And they use the innovation and the ability to be able to make decisions that have affected their PSR situation, which I said they would do, in terms of we felt, or Stefan Paulson felt, that it was categorically going to breach PSR, which they really haven't, besides UEFA, because UEFA don't recognise the sale of hotels or women's teams to one another, but the Premier League does.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be beyond the wit of man. I mean, and we've seen transactions between football clubs. We've seen situations where players are being transferred between, I think, Chelsea and Villa, with no real value being attached to the player, but a transaction that created value to each club with no money parting hands. So, of course, they're creative. Of course, they're creative. That's unfortunately now what football has become is determined as much off the field as by on it. And people's innovation and creative thinking to overcome the obstacles that footballers now seemingly want to throw in the way of what once upon a time was quite a simple thing. Being successful costs money, and those with the most money can achieve whatever they want.
And of course, we know that Chelsea head to West Ham tomorrow night. It's been said by Enzo Maresca that Nicholas Jackson will not be in Chelsea's squad for that one, amid transfer speculation. That one, of course, is live on talkSPORT. So are we at 11:30.
Maddison got injured, he should have gone bang. I need Eze. He knew Son was leaving at the end of the season. He knew he was going. Eze fits both them positions, number 10 and a left winger.
Arsenal now have an agreement with Palace to sign Eze following that injury to Kai Havertz. And our reporter Ben Jacobs told us how Eze's versatility was key for Arsenal.
Eventually, either Gabriel Martinelli might be sold or Leandro Trossard, even though he's been rewarded with a new deal. It's not added length, it's only added money.
Elsewhere, it was noisy at Parkhead last night as fans booed Celtic off and chanted, "Sack the board."
It's normally the manager that goes when that starts to be sung. But no, listen, I think I can only really look at the players that we have here and the performance.
Brendan Rodgers says fans can see the squad needs improving after a toothless 0-0 draw at home to Kazakh side Kairat in the Champions League playoff. And in other transfer news, we understand Johan Visser is furious after Newcastle's latest £40 million bid was rejected by Brentford. We understand Chelsea's owners Blue Co have agreed to sign Brighton winger Julio Enciso and then loan him to Strasbourg. And Bournemouth have announced the signing of forward Amin Adli from Bayer Leverkusen. All your latest transfer news is at talkSPORT.com.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Get ready for the golden era of sports betting. Visit betmgm.co.uk or download the app. 18+gambleaware.org.
It's that time. We look at some of the odds that BetMGM are launching into the market. And Sean Martin from BetMGM joins us live. Sean, good morning to you. Your beloved Celtic held to a goalless draw in Glasgow last night. Now, you said yesterday there'd be no excuses. Do you want to finish this sentence?
The next word's a but, I think, Jim. No, morning, gents. Well, first of all, at least I'm here fronting up, unlike my good friend Matt Gibson after a bad Leeds result. I'll say that.
True.
Could probably sum the performance up in one word, Jim, though perhaps that word not suitable for radio, so I'll give you three instead, which are not good enough, basically. But credit to Kairat Almaty, by the way. It was about 18-1 for a 0-0 draw. They weren't overawed at all for supposed massive underdogs. They went man for man, stuck to their guns all game. But yeah, very disappointing from a Celtic point of view on the pitch. And I must say, exactly the type of situation that I said to you guys before the summer, you'll remember, that I hoped we wouldn't be in off the pitch in terms of not strengthening adequately before the qualifiers, seeing if we qualify, then moving for first team quality players afterwards, as we've seen multiple times across multiple seasons, not just from this one-off game last night. Remember, lads, that's misrepresenting it a tad. But let's see what the second leg brings. It's a different ball game over there. We've found out previously we've not won any of the three away legs we've played in Kazakhstan. We've also not qualified via the qualifiers the last 4 times that we've had to go through them. So count me quite pessimistic unless there's a big shift in attitude and application over in Almaty, lads. And the market has us odds on at around 4-9 to win over there. But as I say, let's see. And there are matches on tonight to look to as well.
You see, so the significant word there for those who missed it was odds. And Sean Martin is a very passionate Celtic fan. So if you take off your BetMGM hat and drape yourself in your beloved Celtic colours, would you be singing Sack the Board last night? Or do you dial it down a bit and say, we need the board, we need the hierarchy, we need Peter Lowe and the rest to start spending money?
Yeah, I mean, there's odds of about 1,000 to 1 for me to delve into that fully with you, Jim. But I'd suggest that, yeah, I was listening to Simon before the break and stuff. I'd suggest if you are as dominant as we are domestically, then the next frontier almost to look at would be to keep making some sort of tangible progress in Europe, no? And I'd say that starts by improving the team each season if you can. Looking at the team now, I'd say we're weaker than the team that ended the season. Essentially lost 2 starting wingers, 1 to injury, 1 to transfer. Lost our starting right back last night. We've spent about 3 million or 2 million, I think you said, from 20 plus that we've got in sales, 60, 70 million in the bank. It's not the way that Bruges, who funnily enough were playing Rangers, and also I heard Simon last week saying, or earlier in the week, saying they acquitted themselves well in Europe. It's not the way they operate, so there is a definite difference there in terms of how some clubs in similar situations operate compared to the way we seem to do it. So,
yeah. Sean, from 12 onwards, Simon, myself and Spencer will be talking boxing. We'll have an exclusive interview with Daniel Dubois. But what next for Moses Itauma in your eyes?
do you mind if I just go back to tonight's games, because I've got Crystal Palace.
Sure, do it for me, yeah.
There's also Aberdeen and Hibs actually as well, both favourites actually, Jim. 6-1, the Scottish double, if you fancy it. But yeah, lest we forget, also in action, Simon's Crystal Palace, Conference League qualifiers. You're a massive 14-1 on, Simon, to beat Norwegian side Fredrikstad. But I have heard a wee trivia question if we've got time for it. Simon, I'm sure you'll know the answer, but I've heard it being mentioned this is Palace's first European tie. But from what I can see, they played a tie in 1998, the Intertoto Cup as well, if you remember that.
They did.
Do you remember their opponents?
It was a Turkish side, wasn't it?
I have to rush you.
I do know.
Sorry, guys. Not one of the big
Trabzonspor?
three. Samsonspor, yep. Samsonspor lost both.
Well done.
Fair play, yep. Fair play.
You've just won a holiday in Hawaii.
Terry Venables was there then.
Really?
Yeah, Mark Goldberg's son.
Well done. No added points for that. Thank you. Well, he got it right. So there we go. Is that your lot from the games tonight then, Sean?
Well, as I say, Aberdeen and Hibs 6-1 for the Scottish double. If you wanted to combine it into what I think is an interesting 7-1 ACCA, Aberdeen versus Steaua Bucharest, both teams to score, Hibs to win and Palace to win to nil is 7-1. So yeah.
Yeah. Steaua Bucharest, not the team they once were. I remember Georgi Hadji, Lakatush, you remember all them. So Itauma, in the world of boxing, we'll hear from Daniel shortly, but what about Moses Itauma?
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Moses Itauma, obviously when we spoke last week, I mentioned the accumulator I was eyeing up for fight night. Must admit, I ended up backing out of the Hrgovic Adeleye not to go the distance leg. I swapped it for just Hrgovic to win, so it ended up about 11-1 overall. Nick Ball by decision, Ray Ford by decision, both came in, but I was undone, as Dillian White was, by how quick and clinical Moses Itauma's first round stoppage was, so it went nowhere near over 4.5 rounds. But like I did for you the other week, Simon, with Usyk, I've got 4 or 5 potential fights priced up for Itauma, so two-pronged question really. Who would you like to see him in against next, but also where do you actually think he goes next? And I've got some prices here, and if you fancy them.
In order to make sure that he has the quality of opponent before he jumps into a world title fight, I'd like to see him fight someone like Filip Hrgovic.
Yeah.
Or even David Adeleye. Despite David Adelaye's loss to Hrgovic, I just think there's this gap in what we know about Moses Itauma, despite the protestations from everybody around me that he's the real deal. No one's hit him back yet. And then that's the object of the aim, I know, but someone is going to. And until that question is asked and answered, which I think will be answered affirmatively.
So you're saying Itauma Hrgovic?
He's asking me who I'd like to see him in with.
Yeah.
Hrgovic. What Frank Warren had said prior to this fight was, can he be put in against Joseph Parker if the WBO is vacated by Usyk and made a fight against Parker for the world title?
Simon, we might be able to answer that very question in the final hour today, because we have Francis Warren going to join us, who is Moses Itauma's manager, and we shall be speaking live to David Adeleye. What chance then of that one? What chance of that do you think, Sean?
Yeah, well, it's all very up in there, isn't it? And on that note, I'm looking forward to hearing what Frank Warren says in the final hour. But yeah, in terms of odds, the spoiler alert is that he's odds on to beat basically everyone except Usyk at the moment. I mean, you've got Hrgovic. I heard Adam Catterall actually on Monday with you guys mentioning Hrgovic. Adeleye, I would say, showed even in a dominant performance, Hrgovic can be hit, which would probably encourage Itauma. You would think Hrgovic is 23-4, so almost 6-1 to beat him. You've got other names like Caballel, he's 4.5-1. Zhili Zhang, 42 now, but still carried a bit of power against Caballel, maybe a bit unfairly, a massive 17-2, which is actually rated less likely than David Adeleye to beat Itauma, just to put it into a bit of context. You also mentioned Joseph Parker there, and I must admit, I'm talking myself into this one happening just because of the circumstances. If what Parker told you, Simon, on Top Boxing does come true, and Usyk doesn't take the mandatory, vacates, then you've got Parker interim WBO champ, and Itauma now WBO #1 contender. It's almost 2.5 to 1 for Parker, and Itauma 8 to 25, which is about 3 to 1 on. But yeah, very interested to hear what you guys, Spencer and Frank Warren, discuss later, because Itauma's next fight, it's just such an intriguing one. But for me, fate and the nature of the governing bodies alone makes a Parker Itauma world title fight probably the one I'd want to see, most assuming.
Sean, you might have just talked yourself into having a regular spot on the Boxing Hour, let alone this man's Top Boxing. Sean, let's finish with day 2 at York.
Yeah, very quickly, day 2 of the Ebor Festival. After 74 favourite Ombudsman won the Juddmonte on day 1 yesterday. Our racing ambassador Megan Nichols had a couple of decent H-way shouts yesterday, and her nap for today to take a look at is actually in the very first race, Jim, a horse called American Queen in the 150, currently sitting at around about 3 to 1.
Okay. Tommy is one of our viewers on YouTube, says, ask Sean, that's not a Glasgow tan, is it? Where do you get that colour?
It's a Greenock tan, Jim, that's what it's called.
Is it a Greenock tan?
Yes, it's been brilliant up here this week.
Costa Greenock. Beautiful. Sean, thank you very much indeed. That was the latest odds from Sean, BetMGM. Visit betmgm.co.uk. Download the app. 18 plus. BeGambleAware.org.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Keep things golden with responsible play at betmgm.co.uk. 18 plus. GambleAware.org.
Business Briefing on talkSPORT with Tesco Mobile for Business. Got a side hustle as a Pilates instructor? Stretch your budget with business phone bills for up to 40% less than the big three networks. For verification, see tescomobile.com/business.
It's that time. We're going to round up a couple of football's top business stories with Tesco Mobile for Business. And Mr. Jordan will turn his attention to both of these topics. Simon, what do you make of this? The football YouTuber Mark Goldbridge has won the rights to stream 20 live Bundesliga games this season. You'll have seen this. It's in one or two of the newspapers this morning. It's the first time an online content creator has been included in such a deal. He's built something of a decent base through his watch-alongs. His That Football account has 1.38 million subscribers on YouTube. So is this the direction we're going in, from the humble YouTuber to European football rights holders? Is this the next turn of the wheel for sports rights?
Certain sports rights, yeah. I mean, new media versus old media. New media will crush old media in the end and is beginning to do so. The linear broadcasters use the term YouTuber, the mainstream media, us, other sections of the media, to deride and to classify certain content delivery mechanisms. Now, it's interesting, it's not just Mark that's got this, it's the overlap as well. So these rights, the UK-based rights for the Bundesliga are looking at opportunities to create more awareness. I don't think there's any commercial value in this deal in terms of any massive revenue to either the Bundesliga or to Mark Goldbridge or to Gary Neville in the overlap. I think it's all about awareness and opportunities. And I think it's just a landscape opportunity for some of these leagues that can't compete with the power leagues of the Premier League to find a way to create more eyes on the prize that somewhere along the line they might commercialise. They could have flogged it, perhaps, for £500,000 to DAZN or someone like that, but put it behind a paywall. And then they'd have limited eyes on the prize. If they give it to a digital content creator like Mark Goldbridge that's got a big audience, whatever you think of his content is irrelevant. You know, I listen to, everyone talks about content delivery and what the content is and how they don't do or don't like it. I turned on Channel 4 about a year ago and there was a guy butt naked playing the piano with his penis. I didn't like that content either. That's a mainstream broadcaster.
Why did he hit the high note?
Well, there you go. So the bottom line is that some of the content that's being delivered, digital marketplace is crushing linear broadcasting. It is the new media is taking over from old media. Interestingly enough, though, new media still wants the credibility of old media.
Yeah.
Still wants the relationship with it. But if you look at the way it's going, if you look at the major terrestrial broadcasters, they're getting their backsides handed to them. If you look at what's happening to Sky, the subscription models, the amount of subscribers that they're getting is just churning away to virtually zero. The interesting thing will be is how this works for the Bundesliga. Clearly, these leagues like Liga and Bundesliga, Serie A, are not getting the overseas deals that they want.
Yeah.
This is a UK-only deal, so it's YouTube potentially being approached by someone like the Bundesliga saying, "We want to have a relationship with you guys. We'll give you a section of our media rights. Who do you advocate for?"
Right,
and they've advocated for Goldbridge and for.
Do you think other European leagues will have to diversify as well?
Well, it's not diversifying. It's a media rights package that they clearly haven't gotten rid of, and so they've given it an opportunity in a different space.
Yeah.
And so what it does, it doesn't give validity to the YouTube marketplace. It already has validity. It already has numbers. Are you seeing the numbers that these guys are doing?
Of course, yeah. But I'm personally not entertained by watching the likes of Goldbridge describe Manchester United conceding a goal and then going into like a huge strop about it.
Sure, but
like really,
but you're not the. That's fine. But there's hundreds of thousands of people that do want to listen to that. The fan community that are watching sport in a different way feel... Now, this channel is doing watch-alongs in boxing. So it's not something that isn't being done elsewhere. And
of course.
And so I have to say...
I was part of that in Saudi.
Well, they are. Fair play to Mark Goldbridge for building a business. Whatever people think of his content or don't think of it, he's got a big community, he's got a big audience. He's probably trying to broaden his appeal, open up different marketplaces for him. I say fair play to him.
I want to, in the time we've got, I want to squeeze this in. Drag-along clauses. This is a totally different subject, but I want to get Simon's take on it. I've never heard of this. You will have. Of course you have. There's been commentary in recent days over a clause that's come into effect regarding Jim Ratcliffe's £1.3 billion investment in 25% of Manchester United. On the 13th of August, a drag-along right clause in the deal came into effect. Now, the deal was that such a clause, this drag-along clause, would come into play 18 months after the completion of Ratcliffe's investment. Now, what it means is, should they wish, in the event of a bid for the club, the Glazers could not only sell their stake, but they could also force Ratcliffe into selling his 28.9% stake as well.
Standard fare. I mean, I thought you had a drag-along clause on me, hence the reason why I'm being dragged up to Glasgow at the end of September.
That's true.
Look,
beginning of October.
The fact of the matter is that most commercial deals, strangely not listed companies, but most commercial deals that have shareholder agreements behind them, that have minority and majority shareholders, will have a drag and tag. A drag-along is basically the majority shareholders, if they want to sell. If they're selling their shareholding in the business and the potential purchaser wants to buy all the stock, then the minority shareholders, in this instance Jim Ratcliffe, have to come along to the party and sell their stock at the same time.
Sell their stock at the same time?
This is not unusual. And alternatively...
what if Jim doesn't want to do that?
But that's the deal he entered into. Jim didn't have to enter into that deal. Now, I'm assuming that he'd entered... I mean, the Glazers won't be selling the stock at a lower price. They'll be selling it at a hugely advantageous price. So whatever they've sold to Jim Ratcliffe, you'd expect them to do better when they're selling the next time round, because the club will have been commercially better seeded as a result of the investment that Jim Ratcliffe has put in. So the drag-along effect will have a commercial benefit to Jim Ratcliffe, I suspect, in most instances. Otherwise, he wouldn't have signed it.
So unless he chooses to sell his stake himself, Jim Ratcliffe really has no control over his stake. In the football club, in future.
Yeah, yes and no.
It means the Glazers want to sell, Ratcliffe and Ineos can't stop them.
Well, they couldn't in the first place.
Right.
And if you were a stockholder in Man United, who could stop you from selling it? It's a public listed
But the Glazers should force Jim to sell his stake.
Well, it's an agreement.
At their price.
They haven't forced him to do anything. They didn't force him to sign the agreement that he signed. Jim Ratcliffe bought a shareholding from the Glazers.
I get that, but he dances to their tune.
Well, he has signed an agreement with them, which is basically if they were to sell. Now, think about this to Man United fans. Who do they want out? The Glazers. Who do they want out second now? Jim Ratcliffe, because he's gone from hero to zero overnight because they now don't think he's much cop. So the bottom line is, and that will change because Jim Ratcliffe will, I think, with some of his thinking, will eventually get it right. The bottom line is if you look at it and say that the Glazers are the majority shareholders, they have the right to tell the minority shareholders, as a result of a drag agreement that was ultimately put in place, that they have to sell their shareholding at the same time as any purchaser. No, that doesn't mean they have to, because the purchaser might not want to buy their shares. The purchaser may come and say, I don't need 100% stock. So it doesn't mean that he has to sell his shares. It's only in the event that someone buying the stock from the Glazers subsequently wants to buy the other stock that's held by a minority shareholder. The other side of that argument is a tag, which is basically if the Glazers were selling their shares, if Jim has a tagger relationship or a tag agreement, he can tag his shareholding onto that and say, you have to buy mine too. So if someone comes in and buys the Glazers, and if Jim has a tag agreement in place, then he gets the opportunity to ride off the Glazers' coattails in terms of a deal by having a tag agreement.
This is all
standard fare.
This is standard fare.
Standard fare.
This is all part of the norm.
And it's nothing to do whatever this kicked up, or whatever controversy it may be invoking.
Yeah, there's been a bunch of commentary about it.
Whatever commentary it may have invoked on the back of the fact that it's 18 months since Jim Ratcliffe crystallised his interest in Manchester United by buying his shareholding, it's nothing. Glazers aren't selling.
Yeah.
So it's of no interest to anybody.
Well, not
really.
yet.
Or if they sell it, then the Man United fans will be out in the street having a party with a bunch of Vavulas. Remember those?
Yes, I do.
Yeah?
It's Jim White and Simon Jordan, and that was a roundup of football's top business stories with Tesco Mobile for Business.
Business briefing on talkSPORT with Tesco Mobile for Business. Got a side hustle as a Pilates instructor? Stretch your budget with business phone bills for up to 40% less than the big three networks. For verification, see tescomobile.com/business.
talkSPORT Sports Update, powered by the Nissan Van Range. Commercial vehicles built around your business. Search Nissan Vans or head to your local Nissan Van Centre.
With your headlines at midday, I'm Nick Ellaby. Good afternoon. Simon Jordan's somewhat come to the defence of Daniel Levy this morning. Spurs fans have accused the chairman of lacking ambition over losing out to Arsenal on signing Eberechi Eze, but former Palace owner Simon Jordan isn't so sure Eze's previous agreement with Spurs was a done deal.
If it's actually more convoluted than that it wasn't quite agreed, that there was in the background an opportunity for Eze to talk to Arsenal that the agent knew about and that Palace knew about, and that Palace were not interested in where the player went. They were interested in getting the maximum they could from the deal, and they had an opportunity to play Arsenal against Tottenham. That's probably more likely how it is.
We understand Arsenal have agreed a Crystal Palace club record £60 million deal for Eze. Now, Enzo Maresca says Nicholas Jackson will be left out of the Chelsea squad to face West Ham tomorrow, despite being back from suspension.
He is available, but he is not going to be part of the squad because, as we already said, we have two strikers, we have two players in that position, and also something can happen before the window transfer close.
Jackson's expected to leave Chelsea after they added Liam Delap and João Pedro this summer. Christopher Nkunku won't be involved either. All the latest transfer news at talksport.com. West Ham versus Chelsea is live on talkSPORT tomorrow evening. And two gold medal winning Olympic female boxers at the centre of a gender dispute in Paris last year intend to keep fighting. Algeria's Imani Khalif says claims from her former manager that she intends to retire are untrue, and it's reported Taiwan's Lin Yu-ting has no plans to skip next month's World Championships in Liverpool.
talkSPORT News.
The number of asylum seekers being housed in hotels has gone up by 8% in Labour's first year in government, and a woman jailed for stirring up racial hatred on the day of the Southport murders is being released today. More from the news team at past.
talkSPORT weather with QuickFit. Get a free vehicle safety check at all of our 600 centres nationwide to keep you safe on the road. Visit your local centre or quickfit.com and book today.
Warm in the sunshine when it arrives. Dry for most of us today, except in the north and east where there's light showers. A cool breeze as well affecting North Sea coasts.
It's that time, Thursday lunchtime, in East Struts. Spencer Oliver is in our midst, in our new studio on the 17th floor of the News Building, and he's very much part of the fabric of this place. Spencer, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Jim. Good afternoon, Simon.
Oh, you're not getting...
Good afternoon, Simon.
Simon. Even though Simon is sitting right beside Spencer, for some reason, is there any reason you're not acknowledging your pal?
I've already spoken to him.
Oh, you've already spoken to him, I see. All right, you do know we're live at the moment. Good afternoon, Spencer, might have sufficed, but it didn't come.
I've never understood all that. You know, when you sit beside a show, before the show, and you walk in the studio and you've never spoken to one another before.
Yeah.
Get on with entertaining the public.
Is that why go on here at 10, you come in about 10 past?
Correct, yeah.
Just
so I can avoid all that, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I've got this again. Anyway, Spencer, good afternoon to you. I'll say that, and it is indeed good to see you. We are going to be speaking in the next hour, not least to Spencer and to Simon, about matters in the world of boxing. David Adeleye will join us, of course. Daniel Dubois, you're going to be hearing an exclusive interview with Daniel. I spoke to Daniel just before we came on air. You don't want to miss that, but past the hour for that. And of course, we talk about the man who's written all the headlines in the last few days, Moses Itauma, out in Saudi Arabia, and he did a job on Dillian Whyte, did he not? We'll speak to Francis Warren, who is Moses' manager. He's going to join us live in just a second. But Itauma, thrilled to have seen off Whyte in just one round.
What Ben was telling me what to do for the first maybe 2-3 minutes, I saw he was doing exactly what Ben telling me to do, but it's just, you know, the fight nerves, whatnot kicked in. And then after maybe like the first minute, I was like, okay, cool. I keep seeing this happen. I can't miss it. So Yeah, man. Executed the game plan. It's bigger and better, man. What's next? I'm 20-year-old. I'm only 20-year-old. I've got maybe 10, 15 years left in this career. So, man, there's going to be a lot of this face around. So, I'm just happy to be able to put a performance on for you guys.
Final one, simple question. Will you be a world champion in 2026?
Belt to ass. Come on, man. Listen, if I get the opportunity, 100%. 100%.
Okay, son of Francis Warren, who is Moses Itauma's manager. Francis joins us live on the show this lunchtime. Good afternoon to you, Francis. What is next for him? Before we get to that, did you expect him to do such a demolition job on Dillian White?
No, gents. I think expect is the wrong word, but I knew he was capable of it. But I talked to obviously his coach Ben and Lee throughout the week, and spoke to Moses, and then they knew that if they executed a game plan, which they did, he's more than capable of taking anybody out. In the early rounds. But I think expect is the wrong word, but definitely knew he was capable of doing that.
And what's next? That's the burning question, Francis.
Well, there's a list, isn't there?
Yeah.
I've gone through it, and we've decided. Moses decided to go on holiday this week and for a well-deserved break, and we're going to sit down next week with the training team, the promotional team, and the management team, and hear what Moses wants to do. I think it's the most important thing is where he feels he's at. But there's some very exciting fights out there to be made, and this isn't about calling people out at this stage. This is about analysing who we feel is the right move for Moses at this time. But as he said, after his fight on Saturday, if he gets the knock for a world title, he'll open the door, and I don't doubt that he'll want to do that. Maybe not next, but within the next 12 months, certainly.
Well, Francis, a lot depends on what happens with Alexander Usyk with that WBO title. I know he's got an extension on that right now, but if he does relinquish that title, Moses is number one. We've got Joseph Parker there, who's the interim champion, so that's a fight that could materialise depending on what Joseph Parker wants to do next. And there's Filip Hrgovic hanging around as well, so there is a lot of options, but that world title could come sooner rather than later, couldn't it? Because I think speaking to yourself and speaking to your father as well, if you get Joseph Parker or you get Filip Hrgovic and that WBO title's on the line, then surely you have to take that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, and again, this isn't about being disrespectful to anybody. These guys, Joe Parker's a fantastic servant to boxing, and he's been there for he's earned his right to be up there with some fantastic wins. But Moses is a special talent, and I think the recognition he's getting is because of that special talent that he is at number one with the WBO. I can't imagine if Joe gets elevated to full champion that he'll give Moses a voluntary. I think it will have to be ordered by the WBO, which would probably push it into next year. I do love the Hrgovic fight. I think that's a good fight for Moses to make that next step up onto that world level. Philip's been there and done it. But there's some other names out there. I think Caballel's probably one that has been mentioned a few times. Michael Hunter, Jared Anderson, and you've also got Pulev, within the WBA who holds a version of a world title. So there are names out there. We're certainly not beholden to anybody, and we're waiting around for anybody. People will be offered the fight. He'll fight in December again this year, and then it'll be 2-3 fights a year from here on out. We're going to keep him nice and busy. But I think this is very important, this next step. Nobody wants to get this one wrong because he is a special talent, but he is only 20. So, it will be a collective decision and one that's based on his best interests.
Francis, after the fight, your dad, who knows a few things about the world of boxing, said he's the best young fighter at this age than any other fighter I have been involved with. Simon, Frank rates him that highly. Do you?
I mean, I think what Frank and Francis have done with Moses' career has been brilliant, but they do it most of the time with most of their fighters. They curate and create the best opportunities. They match them perfectly, and they build up the reputation. Moses' reputation is very difficult to manage because the expectation levels are so high of him now that he's almost, he's at a stage where people are expecting him to go into the ring and knock people out, which he himself was talking about prior to the fight, wasn't he, Moses, when he was talking to the media? The questions asked last week, which Francis will be very pleased were answered, was how does he manage himself on the big stage where he is the headline act? He's got to deal with a whole direct range of different burdens upon him, and he came through it in flying colours. Now, whatever I may think about Dillian White's performance, it doesn't detract from Moses Itauma. I love the fact that they're thinking along the lines of Hrgovic. I'm not interested in seeing him against Pulev. I think Pulev is done. He's an old man. I'm not interested in seeing him against Jared Anderson. I'm not interested in seeing him against Michael Hunter. But I am very interested in seeing him against someone like Filip Hrgovic. So I think that's a fascinating thought process, because Hrgovic is, for me, a live one. Despite what Daniel Dubois did to him, he's a live one, Spence, right?
Totally agree, and I think that it's a very winnable fight for Moses, and it's a guy, most importantly, that will give him the rounds that he needs, because that's all the talk we're talking about now is, well, Moses Itauma, yeah, he's going for everyone, but he needs to get those rounds. You go, well, listen, they're putting them people in front of him to give him those rounds, but unfortunately, they can't get through the rounds.
Francis, you just made a point, and I'm sure you know it better than I do, that if, as people think will happen, Francis, that Usyk will vacate the WBO, is it automatically that Joe Parker is elevated to the champion, or does he have to fight for the belt?
He's automatically elevated to full world champion, that's why I said you're more than likely to want a voluntary defence.
Right, that's why I was questioning, because Joe Parker, when he was in the studio the other day, was very cavalier, and we all like Joe, and we all rate him, and he's in your stable as well. Was very cavalier about he would absolutely take the Itauma fight. What you're saying is, well, if he's elevated to the world title holder, he would want to do what he wants to do first, rather than being potentially put in with what people consider to be the most dangerous fighter in heavyweight boxing right now.
In Joe Parker, I mean, Queen's promote Joseph. So if when that fight is made, it's going to be easier than should he be with another promoter. But if I'm managing Joe Parker, and I don't, and he's with Spencer, and but I would be advising him to make a few quid before putting it all on the line against a 20-year-old guy coming through the ranks. However, if Joe feels confident enough to be able to say, right, I'm full champion, I'll take on the number one, we're all ears. I think it's just there's no rush here for anybody. We've all got time on our side. Like as I said, it's a lot easier to make these fights when all the guys are under the same promotional banner. George and my father have done an amazing job curating, a heavyweight roster that makes all these guys, gives all these guys the capability to be able to go and fight each other, and where a loss doesn't mean the end of the world for you. It's
Francis,
Filip Hrgovic now is back. He's flying high again. He talks about it, as an elite.
Francis, is there any feeling, and I asked this question with all due respect, that questions have yet to be asked of Moses, because despite the name on the roster, and I know you won't potentially agree with this, that the Dillian Whyte that turned into that ring was not the Dillian Whyte that we saw 3 or 4 years ago. Moses did his job and knocked him out in one round. There's no dispute that he's a world-class operator. Is there any debate about needing to learn more before we see him? Because obviously there was people calling him out to fight Usyk next, and there's a school of thought, I think, that he shouldn't be near Usyk at this time. He's still developing as a fighter, and there's still levels that Moses has to fight at before he goes in with Usyk. How do you feel about that sort of observation?
I think, Jimmy, sorry, Simon, it's an interesting one, because if we went and sort of, just made the fights that you just said that, don't particularly, float your boat with a Hunter at Anderson, even like a Jermaine Franklin, with the ambition of getting rounds in, he's not going to get rounds against those guys. I think he streaks above them already.
Indeed.
And so therefore you move into that next sort of, I mean, if you call the elites of Caballero, Usyk, Joe Parker, they're the guys at the top of the tree. And then you have got this sort of A-star group of world-class fighters that I think that's where Moses sits in now. It would be nice to see him, in with a Filip Hrgovic. And I'm not, this isn't calling people out. I'm going to make that clear. The Kohlis, all those sort of guys, Zangs. If there opportunity to go and learn, that's the scary thing. He'd be learning on the job against these guys. And if he comes through those, then you're really, really talking. You're talking business. But what we won't be doing is rushing anything.
I think Francis, the only way this young man's going to get any rounds is when he becomes world champion. That's where I see it with him. There's talk about him getting the rounds against Hrgovic.
Hrgovic will give us some rounds, won't he?
Yeah, but will he?
Do you think Hrgovic will give us some rounds?
Hrgovic cuts like rice paper, and Moses is very quick, very sharp, and that fight could be over very quickly. That is the reality of it.
Badly, didn't it? And that may be why we can't make the Hrgovic fight next, is because that cut. I mean, I think if he closed his eye, he could still see through it. It was a bad cut, and it's the second time it's opened up, in the last 3 fights. So would he give him rounds? I would expect I know what Moses is capable of doing to him, but also Phillips, a seasoned pro and a seasoned world-class operator who knows how to survive. He saw that against Daniel. Daniel couldn't, he survived an onslaught from Daniel, and it was the cut that finally, broke the camel's back.
Okay. Francis, good of you to join us in what is a pretty busy schedule that you're having these days. Thank you so much, Francis Warren, with us live this lunchtime. When we come back after this, we're going to hear from a man who may end up in the ring at some stage with Moses Itauma, and he is Daniel Dubois, an exclusive with him on the way. Thursday lunchtime, that means we're talking boxing, and it's becoming more and more apparent to me that I think because of Spencer, because of Simon, all the big names in the world of boxing want to join us during this hour. David Adeleye is one of those. He'll be joining us live. You heard from Francis Warren just a short time ago. Just before we came on air this morning, Daniel Dubois decided he wanted to speak to us here at talkSPORT. He wanted to speak to myself, knowing that Simon was with me and knowing that Spencer was as well. And he wanted to speak in some detail regarding the events in recent days when it was announced that Daniel would be changing trainer, no longer with Don Charles, and speak about what he's been up to since that defeat in mid-July at the hands of Alexander Usyk. And it was a crushing defeat. So here is Daniel Dubois. And I said to him first off, what have you been up to since the Usyk loss?
You know, just reflecting back on everything and getting ready for the next step now. I still got plenty to give, but yeah, it's just been reflection, time of reflection.
It was a crushing defeat. I mean, you've thought long and hard, have you, about why it went so wrong?
I come up against one of the best in the world and a southpaw on top of that. Yeah, I could have done better, but this is how it goes sometimes. And I don't feel deflated or defeated in myself. I need to learn and learn about myself and, improve myself.
So, Daniel, now you've split from your trainer, Don Charles. Was that your decision?
Yeah, 100%. Just thinking, looking back, Don's been great for me. We won a world title together, but I was just thinking about moving forward and how I can improve myself. And, that was my decision.
Can a new trainer get more out of you?
I hope so. I'm willing to give everything I've got, everything I've got left now at this stage of my career, and become two-time heavyweight champion of the world. That's my goal. I'm willing to do anything to get to that.
And is that new man Tony Sims, Daniel?
I can't say for now, to be honest. I can't say for now. I need to sit down and talk with my team first properly about everything, how the structure is going to be. But there will be an announcement soon on that, for sure.
And you've got a new manager in Sam Jones. What do you think he can bring to you?
He does a lot of work behind the scenes, as I've seen myself. He's not just a big mouth. He does a lot of work behind the scenes for you as well, and he talks up for you. And moving forward, a sort of new beginning for me. So that's all part of it, yeah.
Daniel, a lot was made of this pre-fight party, before AJ and before Usyk. Yeah. It was also called a gathering. Were you opposed to that happening?
No, it worked the first time with AJ and things like that. But I don't even want to talk on that too much, that's not why anything went wrong in the fight. I look to myself and look what I could have done better and things like that. But, it worked the first time with AJ, so it's a whole new beginning for me moving forward now, what I've got to change and get right.
Your dad's still a big influence on you. How involved is he? I mean, some might say he's too involved.
No, I don't think he's too involved. I think he's looking out for me. He's looking out for my best interest and moving forward. I'm learning as well, and I'm just deciding really what direction we're going to go in for this next step.
Who is next? Is Moses Itauma on the horizon?
All the guys in the heavyweight division, they're all the guy, especially the one who has the belts, and if the belts fragment or whatever stuff like that can happen. Whatever way I can become two-time heavyweight champion. That's where I'm going.
Do you think you would beat Itauma?
Listen, first off, I just need to get everything right. Once I'm right, 100% right, whoever I land on, I can take him out. And, just covering up little gaps in my defence and things like that. I'm going to be the full article when I come back.
That was Daniel Dubois speaking to me just before we came on air this very morning, about 9:15 or so. What's your take on that, Spencer? I noticed you and Simon often chat when we listen to some audio together, and it's being played out to our audience. Today you didn't. You just listened. What do you make of what you heard from Dubois?
He's grown as a person, for sure. I think Don Charles was very important with that. He helped him grow as a person, not just as a fighter. They had 5 fights together, winning 3, only losing 2 to Alexander Usyk back in 2023 in Poland. And then obviously last time out, I totally understand where Daniel's coming from. He wants to grow as a fighter as well. And if you look historically, this will be his 5th trainer. And we do believe that is Tony Sims, going back to Martin Bowles, who was his first trainer, and he had a little spell with Mark Tibbs, also with Don Charles as well. Shane McGuigan was in there now. And so what he does is he moves around because he wants to grow as a fighter, not just Don Charles has helped him grow as a person. The physicalities were always there. I understand it in many ways from Daniel Dubois, and Don Charles had a good conversation with him last night, and he said, look, the split, there was no bad blood between us two. Daniel's chose to move on. That's what he does. And that's pretty much where they're at. So look, he's a young man still. He's 27 years of age. A loss at this level doesn't determine your career or where you're at right now. Daniel will still learn, he will still grow, and will still play a part in this heavyweight division. Remember, Moses Itauma, who's hot on everyone's lips at the moment, he needs dance partners. He needs other guys in the division. And Daniel, that's an interesting fight still.
He didn't duck any questions, Simon. We talked about the so-called parties, the gatherings.
Yeah.
Before he fought AJ on the day, there was a whole bunch of people that he knew, and then he went off to the fight and did a job on AJ. The same thing before he fought against Usyk. Same bunch of people, a gathering, but Usyk did a job on him. But he's not using that as any kind of form of excuse, and he addressed it. He says his father, Stan Dubois, yes, he's a big influence on him, but he's not too much of an influence, and he's looking out my best interests. I mean, this is Daniel's coming back with everything.
I would expect him to say that. I mean, I think there's different opinions, and of course, what Daniel and his father say is probably more prevalent than everyone else, but I'm pretty confident that the gathering that he had for the AJ fight was nowhere near the gathering that he had in relation to the Usyk fight. AJ fight and Usyk fights are 2 different fighters, 2 different dynamics. Just because something worked once doesn't mean it's going to work again. And also the distractions around it, and they're not ideal preparation. He came up against. There's only so many times he'll come up against Alexander Usyk. There's only one Alexander Usyk. So there's a potential that Daniel Dubois can come again, and depending on who he fights and who he fights for a world title when they do eventually get broken up, or Usyk retires because he's 27. The interesting thing will be, because when we were talking on Monday, Paul Smith's very frank, and he's obviously a trainer and a fighter of some significant repute. And I asked him about his views on Daniel's challenges and the circumstances that surround him and his father's influence. And Paul was quite unequivocal, wasn't he, Spence? He think one of the things he thought was the difficulty with Daniel is there's a lack of heart. Now, it's difficult for me to say that, having never been in a ring, but only a fighter can really say it with any integrity. And he believes that there's a missing gene that when it gets tough, really tough, only kind of tough that only these fighters can know about, not the people that opine on it. There is some that do and some that don't, and some that can really decide that they've got the gene to bite down. And he makes the point that he walked across the ring against Usyk, got up and walked across the ring. He stopped in the 9th round to a jab and took a knee. He got stopped against Joe Joyce by taking the knee himself. It's in Daniel, and no matter which coach you put in front of him, you're not going to coach that into him.
I think it's fair to say that different fighters have a different pain threshold, and that's where you're at there. You use that word when you say that you hear people saying, oh, he spewed that one or he bottled it and all that. That's the wrong terminology. You go, it's just that a fighter recognises when he's had enough, and that is at a different level. You look at fighters like Gennady Golovkin and Canelo and all those sort of guys. They can bite down, they can go to a different, and that's why they become elite superstars of the sport. But, different fighters, different pain thresholds. Yeah. That's pretty much where...
And he said during that chat, Spencer, and you heard him, I'm going to go back to the drawing board. I'm going to work in a number of things. In other words, will that lead him going to another level, the level he needs to get to?
Well, he's done it before, hasn't he? We saw that with Don Charles. Like he went with Don Charles just before the first Alexander Usyk loss, and he went to Don Charles, and that didn't happen. And then he grew as a fighter. We saw the Hergovich fight, and we saw the Baby Miller fight, and you saw the improvements all the time. And
so there's still more to come from him.
At 27 years of age, quite possibly there is still more to come, for sure.
Do you doubt there is?
No, I think that quite possibly there is more to come. We won't know that until he teams up with the new trainer. That's sort of how fighters operate, and Daniel's still very much, and I think that is evident, he's still very much on the learning curve, not just as a fighter, but as a human being as well.
Depends who's asking the questions of him. I don't mean literally. I don't mean verbally. I mean literally in the ring. If you put him into a fight with Moses Itauma in 18 months' time, and Moses Itauma at the top of his game, he'll be asked the questions that other people won't ask him. So if he goes into a fight with Joe Parker, he might not be asked the same questions that he was asked of by Usyk. So he doesn't get that challenge that we believe, or is believed of him, the psychological or physical reaction to moments of adversity is something that Daniel can't quite overcome. And my understanding of talking to these guys, you can't coach that into somebody. It's either there or it's not. No matter how much technical ability you give them, when it comes to that moment when you're staring into the abyss, you've either got it or you haven't got it.
Yeah. David Adeleye certainly was asked a few questions by Filip Hrgović. David Adeleye out in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, put up a valiant performance, but it was Hrgović who came out on top. Adeleye will be joining us live at the other side of 12:30. We're live in talkSPORT with Selco, where the trade goes.
Eze come, Eze go. Tottenham have had their top target pinched from under their noses, and former Spurs midfielder Jamie O'Hara has laid into Daniel Levy over losing to Arsenal in the transfer market.
As soon as Maddison got injured, he should have gone bang. I need Eze. He knew Son was leaving at the end of the season. He knew he was going. Eze fits both them positions, number 10 and a left winger.
Arsenal now have an agreement with Palace to sign Eze following that injury to Kai Havertz. And our reporter Ben Jacobs told us how Eze's versatility was key for Arsenal.
Eventually, either Gabriel Martinelli might be sold or Leandro Trossard, even though he's been rewarded with a new deal. It's not added length, it's only added money.
Elsewhere, it was noisy at Parkhead last night as fans booed Celtic off and chanted, "Sack the board."
It's normally the manager that goes when that starts to be sung. But no, listen, I think I can only really look at the players that we have here and the performance.
Brendan Rodgers says fans can see the squad needs improving after a toothless 0-0 draw at home to Kazakh side Kairat in the Champions League playoff. And in other transfer news, we understand Johan Visser is furious after Newcastle's latest £40 million bid was rejected by Brentford. We understand Chelsea's owners Blue Co have agreed to sign Brighton winger Julio Enciso and then loan him to Strasbourg. And Bournemouth have announced the signing of forward Amin Adli from Bayer Leverkusen. All your latest transfer news is at talksport.com.
talkSPORT with DAZN, the global home of boxing. Buy now at dazn.com/boxing.
And we are talking boxing this Thursday lunchtime. This Saturday, live only on DAZN, the unbeaten Jack Rafferty defends his British and Commonwealth titles against the dangerous southpaw Mark Chamberlain in a domestic showdown. Sign up now at dazn.com/boxing. If you're watching on YouTube on your smart TV and you're looking at a wide shot, which is a television term, Spencer Oliver has jumped out of that seat and vaulted over to this one. And Simon is sitting there with a seat vacant to his left. That seat will be filled very shortly by David Adeleye, who is somewhere between floors 1 and 17. Once he gets to the 17th floor, Spencer, he will come in through that door and sit beside you, Simon, if you're agreeable to that, Mr. Jordan.
I am. Be nice to see David.
And he says it'll be nice to see you. He didn't, but anyway. Here's the thing, Spencer. Nick Ball, at the weekend there in Saudi Arabia, you watched it. You were on hand to see it. He beat Sam Goodman by unanimous decision. What was your take on it? And what is next for Nick Ball?
I think that Nick Ball was struggling to get into any sort of flow right from the beginning of the opening bells. And that happens with fighters sometimes. It's like you're punching through treacle, whatnot. And you could see that Nick was sort of struggling to work things out. But I think take nothing away from Sam Goodman, who produced a great performance. He was a lot better than what we thought he would be. But Nick done what champions do, and he come through it. He weathered some bad moments in the fight and took control, in those penultimate rounds. And
what should be taken away is the pens for those judges that scored it the way that they scored it. Because to score it the way they scored it, I mean, you listen to the commentary, and I was listening to Andy Lee through the commentary, and there was a real discussion about how close this fight was and how nip and tuck it was. And Nick Ball obviously dug deep in the last couple of rounds to give himself a better outcome. But I think Sam Goodman was really in the fight. And for the judges to have scored the way they did, now, of course, everyone backs out and goes, well, the close rounds could go either which way. But the fact of the matter is, it was never the scorecard that it was. Sam Goodman was a really different opponent, and I think me and Spence gave him credit for, in terms of he was far better than our expectation. And Nick can't put those performances up again. And this is the byproduct of fighting Ronnie Rios, fighting TJ Dahoney, when he's got to fight world-level fighters that are at the top of their games, rather than potentially guys that are being thrown in to make sure that Nick's all right, because he's earned the right to be all right.
Yeah, I think the scorecards were ridiculous. You had 118, 110 with one of the judges. Don't know what he was watching. 117, 111 was way, way too wide again. And I think the other judge that went 115, 113 in Nick's favour,
more like
that was fair. That was fair, because
Absolutely
we were sitting there at ringside going, well, if one of these rounds is a swing round, this fight could even become a draw.
Absolutely right.
That's where it was. I always thought he won the fight, but I knew it was very tight.
Wasn't it?
It was nip and tuck.
And he got made to look quite one-dimensional.
Well, Spencer, you were sitting ringside as well, as David Adeleye put up a brave performance up against the giant that is the Croatian Filip Hrgović. But David faced the second loss of his career. It was a unanimous decision defeat against Hrgović, although David certainly messed him up a bit. Another massive cut in Hrgovic's eye. Anyway, he's still alive and well and is with us to tell the tale. David Adeleye has just joined us here in studio this lunchtime. Thank you for joining us. Good afternoon, David.
Thank you for having me.
And now the dust is settled, how do you reflect on what took place in Riyadh?
Bitter pill to swallow.
A bitter pill to swallow?
Yeah, it is, because I felt like, obviously, look, the way the fight went, obviously, there's always ifs and buts when you watch the fight back and afterwards, and you always think, I should have just done this, I should have done that. Spence would know what it's like as well, but I feel obviously when you're in the moment, sometimes, when you see things when you're in there, it's always different to how people see things outside, so.
I think, Dave, what my take on it was watching that fight, and you hit him with that jab in the second round that opened up a horrendous cut.
Should have just
finished, and you should have gone for it then.
Finished
mate.
my dinner. I should have, because I usually finish my dinner. I should have finished it there and then. But sometimes you see it, and because he's had cuts beforehand, so I kind of saw things a bit differently. Whereas I thought, look, he's durable. Let me cut him. I'm going to make it worse. As the rounds go on, and my inexperience led me to keep throwing like a big shot on that exact same cut. Whereas what I should have been doing was throwing the same shot that caused the cut, rather than trying to land that big bomb. making it worse.
You said it there, mate. The inexperience let you down there in that fight. You know, and we'll get on to how the fight went later on. And that round 8, by the way, was brilliant. But you showed a lot of character in there yourself. You're still young, and you will learn and come back from that. But the inexperience was the fight that cost you the victory, because after round 2, you have to go for it a little bit here, because you're one shot away from this fight ending, because the referee, the doctor, they were all looking at it, but you allowed him the space and allowed him to get into a rhythm and take the fight away from you. And then before you know it, you're boxing more defensive, which is not your style.
It's not my style, you know. And at the same time, I realised that he got a bit panicky after I cut him. You know, so in my head, my thought process was, look, he's panicking and he's throwing bombs. So I tucked up. I could take the shots, and I said he's going to tire out, and he's going to allow me to just tee off for him in the later rounds. But you know, them shots there, sometimes I got a lot of shots to the back of the head and stuff. They can kind of take its toll. So, that's basically just didn't play in my favour.
I mean, round 8, David, can you take us through it? Coming up off the canvas.
I got hit with a shot. And it's funny because I never go over. And I never go over. I ended up going over against Ward, ended up going over against Hergovic. So it was killing, man. Like, I never go over. I'm never been stopped to my amateur career, never got dropped, nothing like that. So obviously it was a hard one. But yeah, I got hit. I got hit before that, actually, and I shot at him, spurred him on because it sacked me up at the same time. Gone to throw a jab as he's gone to throw his right hand, and they clipped me, like, you know, a bit higher behind my head a bit. And went over. I was completely fine, though. Stayed down, looked at my corner, you know, do the experience thing there, and you know your coach knows you more than anyone else. So I look at him, sweet, I get up, and I was fine. I said, yeah, look, you're trying to come now, so I'm gonna match fire with fire, and then just ended up trading with him.
And it works for you, mate. It works for you because he was like swaying around like a willow tree in the wind at times there, and he was just one shot away. But
he's got a very good chin on him, because I landed some bombs in him, and he's, you know, he still managed to survive it. And it's hard because, you know, you sit there and you think to yourself, bloody hell, round 8, if I did it in round 3, 4, 5, we wouldn't be in a situation right now, and things would be so much different.
Well, that's precisely. When I found myself watching the fight, disappointed and frustrated with you, I feel like I've got an emotional investment with you because you play in the same paddle tennis club as I do. Apparently, getting free calls. And I'm very fond of Adam, very much so, and I like you. And I was frustrated with it because I think to myself, in the 8th round, you've landed massive shots on him. Some of those shots would have been better landed earlier on in the fight, as you know, because you'd have had more potency. If you're getting off the floor trying to knock somebody out, you've got less venom in your punches. And it almost felt to me that you missed an opportunity. I was listening to Adam in the corner, and Adam was saying to you, you're letting him have his way. You're letting him do what he wants. And that, to me, is like a psychological approach, without being too clever, because I've never done what you've done. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm looking at it going, how deep is the belief? And then I'm hearing things like you after the fight, coming back for the main event, and you're very happy and very content.
Yeah, I saw something like that. Someone said that.
That can't be right, David. You can't be happy and content with a defeat, because a defeat is a defeat.
Simple as that, and it's a bitter pill to swallow. But you know, it's a tough reality, truth of the matter. Because look, I went to bed the next day and I woke up in the middle of the night. I was up 3, 4, 5 in the morning, like replaying scenarios in my back of my mind, like, damn, I should have just did
you go into that fight really thinking that you were going to win this fight? Or did you go into that fight thinking, I'm glad to be here, this is a big opportunity for me?
No way. Because at the end of the day, I'll be honest with you, I'm not taking the fight. I don't think I'm going to win at the end of the day. Simple as that. And believe it or not, I know I can knock out any heavyweight. I've got the power to do so. I've got the skill set to do so. So I go into that fight knowing full well I'm going to win. I just think where my problem was I thought the game plan that I had in my own mind, not the game plan, so to say, but when I've cut him and I'm like, look, he's going to tire out, he's panicking. And I'm just not working in my favour. I looked at it wrong. That was what I should have did was get him out of there.
But Adam must have been saying something to you, mustn't he?
Yeah, but that was an introductory, Simon, into world class and different levels, and that's what it is. Like what you've done is you've mistimed certain situations in that fight that's cost you victory.
A lot of fighters would panic in them situations, start swinging, they'll gas themselves out after 2, 3 rounds, you know, it allows me to kind of just sit on my
Is that
shot.
a worry for you? Because people think that's a worry for you. People think that you worry about gassing yourself.
I'll be honest with you, it did play on my mind at the same time, though. You know,
that's a great point.
Yeah.
Why did it play on your mind?
Look, there's no excuses here as well. You know, look, I had tonsillitis the week leading into it. You know,
I saw you post something about that on the Monday.
Yeah,
you saw a doctor out there.
Tuesday. Yeah. But look, kept under wraps. Frank Warren never knew about it. Nobody knew about it because for the simple fact of, like, I don't want my opponent to hear about it. Number one. Number two, I've done a tough, grueling camp. You know, been doing the runs in the gym. So at the same time, I'm not getting pulled out of this fight. I don't want Frank Warren to sit there and say, Dave, look, how you feel? No, I'm a fighting man. I believe in myself at the end of the day. You know, and I know I can fight. So we're knuckling down and we're getting through it. You know, I was on antibiotics. And I remember thinking, I told the doctor, I'm not going on these antibiotics no more. You know, they make me feel a bit more tired than I need to. So I stopped it. So yeah, look.
But that's no excuse.
And there's no excuse.
You're offering
there's
no
excuse. No. Hergovic is a good fighter. He's a world level operator. He is where he is for a reason. I have to give the man his credit and his flowers.
Yeah.
He beat me. You know, at the end of the day, so there's on his end, he did nothing wrong. On my end, I could have just pushed a bit more. You know, so yeah, there's no excuses there. I lost.
Okay.
Like I said to you, it's a bitter pill to swallow. It is.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it because look, at the same time, to explain it to somebody that's obviously never been in that situation is hard. But you know, you can wake up in the middle of the night and you always replay scenarios where you think, damn, I could have did this.
If only.
If only.
Well, I mean, David, the world keeps spinning, and you will be back.
Definitely
the question is with whom. We'll talk about that next. David Adeleye live in the studio with us, and we're live in talkSPORT. talking boxing this Thursday at lunchtime. David Adeleye in studio with Spencer, myself and Simon, having tried and failed to overcome the giant that is the Croatian Filip Hrgović over in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia last weekend. Hrgović, of course, badly cut above the eye, and no doubt another visit to his plastic surgeon, but it was a loss for David Adeleye, and David's coming to terms with that right here in studio with us. Somewhat frustrated, David, that comes over loud and clear. But I mean, even though it's just days after the event, what is next for you? What are you thinking?
Still want to, of course, be involved in big fights and whatnot. You know, if you ask me who I want to fight next, some people call me crazy, but, you know, it's always crazy until it's done, right? So I just leave it for my promotion agent and coach. And whoever they say I'll fight, you guys know I don't shy away from nobody. You know, any fights that I brought forward, I take with open arms.
There's big opportunity out there for you in the stable that you're in. You've got Fabio Wardley, the rematch that could happen. He's world ranked with the WBA. Young Moses. I mean, we got to talk about him. Yeah. And that was a savage performance there. Is that someone that you would, you know,
110%? You know, these are the fights that I would absolutely take with open arms. You know, you got Fabio doing his thing right now. I think he's ranked highly with the WBA.
Number one with the WBA.
You got Moses, obviously, ranked highly with the WBO, doing his thing as well. He put on a good performance over the weekend. So, yeah, I suppose these guys are obviously in a certain position where they're probably going to be fighting for world titles, so they're probably not even thinking about me right now. But if these fights are brought forward, I'll take it.
David, everybody's talking about Moses Itauma.
Yeah.
Everyone's talking about him. He's the man of the moment. Just a boy. He's 20. You're what, 28?
Yeah.
But what do you really think of him? What do you see when you look at Itauma and the job that he did, albeit on Dillian Whyte, an aging Dillian Whyte?
Good performance. You know, it was an old Dillian Whyte. I think it was half the Dillian Whyte, or like a shell of what he really is. But at the same time, you can't take nothing away from Moses, because he did what he needed to do, and beat the man in front of him. Did it in spectacular fashion as well.
Do you feel that we're in the changing of the times with these heavyweights now? Obviously, Tyson Fury, whether he's going to fight again, he may have one more. Anthony Joshua's at that stage as well. They're all in the twilight of their careers there, you know. And do you feel that now we're on the changing of the times, and there's young guys coming through?
Yeah.
But obviously, you need those dance partners, and you need a few of those others
100%.
to come through as well.
Yeah, 100%. You know, British boxing is at an all-time high right now, especially for the heavyweights. You know, there's so many competitors. European boxing, you know, international boxing is at all-time high, and obviously the people at the top of the tree are starting to sail off into the sunset. Nobody knows what Usyk's going to do. You've got Tyson and obviously AJ focused on each other.
We spoke to Dubois this morning. He's working on a variety of things, and he'll be back.
Yeah, so look, boxing looks good right now.
Dubois and you, is that a fight you'd fancy?
Yeah, I'd love that fight. You know, that's a good fight. Me and Dubois used to swallow each other a lot in the gym, so I think the fans will be in for a real treat there. And yeah, if you want to see a real shootout, yeah, get me and Dubois in the ring.
You got a little smile on your face. You fancy that one, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
You've seen Itauma. We all saw what he did at the weekend. Yeah. You've just come off the back of fighting Hrgović.
Yeah.
If it's Hrgović Itauma, what would we see there?
Good question. Depends on... Look, Hrgović is a very good opponent. You know, I just think if you use your feet against Hrgović and your movement, then you can get the job done. You know, which is what Itauma does. It just depends on if the pressure might be too much for Itauma. We'll have to see.
And what about Hrgović cuts? Do you think that they will hold up? Because you hit him with a jab in round 2, and that opened up from corner to corner of his eyelid.
Yeah.
And that seems to be a problem.
Spence, you're just rubbing it in, mate. Keep reminding me.
I'm gonna keep reminding you, mate, until you get it right. I'm gonna keep reminding you.
No, fair play.
Yeah, but that was that's an old cut that opened up again. Do you think that's going to be a problem moving forward for Hrgović?
Yeah, depending on the sort of people he gets in there with. You know, certain people have sharp power where they get hit with certain shots that are sharp, and them sort of punches there can open up cuts and cut the skin. And you've got other people that got like sort of blunt power, that kind of just bruise people. So it depends, because obviously the shot that cut Hrgović was a sharp jab, and I think that's why it cut him up so badly, because the shot was actually sharp. You know, when I was hitting him with sort of like more of the blunt ones, they didn't cut him. So yeah, it depends, but at the same time, it's going to be detrimental to his career moving forward, Hrgović, because of his scar tissue over his eye.
Talk of, and I'll put this to the three of you, Gervonta Tank Davis going in next against Jake Paul.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Javante, you got the boxer, you got the YouTuber. Jake Paul rails against that kind of talk.
Javante Davis was going to be fighting Anthony Joshua, I think, down to broadcast deals. One's with obviously DAZN, the other one's with Netflix. The fight has broken down. That's not happening. So we hear now that Javante Tank Davis, who, by the way, is one of the pound-for-pound best fighters in the world, is 135 pounds. Yeah. Right? Yeah. He's 5'5". He's my height. He's talking about fighting. Jake Paul now calls him out and says, this is the fight that's happening, by the way, November the 15th in Atlanta against Jake Paul, 6'1" and 200 pounds. You just go, what is going on here, mate? And by the way, if Jake Paul loses to Javante Davis, that shuts down everything, because you go, don't forget how good he is as a fighter. He's 135 pounds. He's a lightweight against a cruiserweight. Yep. Only in this world could that happen right now. That's crazy, man.
Do you scratch your head when you hear things like that, David?
Yeah, it's funny, but I want to hear Simon's opinion, because I know he's obviously got a lot to say. But for me, it was like they spoke about it beforehand, but I didn't think it was actually going to happen. And for it to obviously come to fruition is a bit...
You think it's going to happen, Spence?
It is happening. It's done. It's an exhibition. It's happening. They've announced it November the 15th in Atlanta. Yeah, but my point is, Simon, how do you go from potentially fighting Anthony Joshua, an active current two-time world heavyweight champion, to Javante Davis?
Yeah, like you said, somebody's 6'6", the other one's 5'5". Somebody weighs 115 kilo, the other one weighs about 60.
Well, easy, because you've got people's attention. And it's all about attention.
It's a nonsense, isn't it?
I suppose the next question is, would
Javante
you watch
Davis?
it,
No, I wouldn't. It's a load of old fanny. I don't want to watch it. But Javante Davis is a world-class operator. He shouldn't want to be anywhere near it. But the actual rewards for him are going to be so significant, because this kid brings along a YouTube viewing.
5'5" is not a midget, mate. That's my height.
It will get a huge audience.
You're a mental midget.
We'll finish on this. David, when are you back? When do you think? What sort of timescale are we talking about?
So it'll be in either October, November, December. You know, I'm staying in the gym. You know, I'm staying active. I got to right them wrongs. I got to do certain things. You know,
yeah.
And I think you guys are gonna see a new and improved Adeleye. I don't want to talk too much. I'd rather you guys just see it. But yeah, trust me, Adeleye's gonna be one of the most active heavyweight punchers in the division. Yeah. How many punches I'm going to be throwing in my next fight per round? It's going to be frightening.
Look forward to it. Anything happens in the fight game, Javante Davis against Jake Paul, why don't you fight Simon? That would be great. That would get
Simon on the same page, man. I like Simon.
I want to get back Daniel gym, mate, because I rather like them boots. Them boots were nice.
Yeah.
I look quite
Simon. You guys should come down. You guys are all welcome.
Oh yeah.
I want you guys to see how
where's the gym?
Next fight in Surrey.
In Surrey. Yeah. We'll be there. David Adeleye, thank you so much for joining us this lunchtime, this Thursday lunchtime live in talkSPORT. We're coming up to 1.